we're live.
Going
I think
live.
going live.
And we're live now.
What's up, guys?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to a stream. In this stream, we're kind of testing. This was my testing stream idea because we're actually, me and Alex and Max and Brent, we're all going to do an interview tomorrow.
Bryant Kennedy.
Bryant Kennedy. And I've been working on a lot of OBS stuff, OBS wizardry to try to figure out how to do, like, live streaming, like doing all my editing beforehand, like within OBS live, rather than having to edit, because our format, we kind of want to do these videos where we're interviewing people and it's all live, kind of like Joe Rogan style, where we don't have to actually edit the videos. It's just a one product. So
yeah. So we don't really have a topic for the live stream, but I guess what we could do, maybe we could criticize transhumanism if you want. The usual, where we usually argue. This time we can argue against it. I think that could be fun.
Yes.
Want to do that?
Well, first, you should critique my frame here, because we still have to figure out everything with this OBS thing, making sure it's all going to go. Let's just finish the test a little bit.
I know. I see you. Sometimes you ghost out, like your shoulder ghosts out.
I'm gonna have. So what my plan is, I'm gonna have a green screen board I've made. It's a big green screen that's flattened against a whiteboard, so I'm gonna put that behind me tomorrow, and that should allow this filter to distinguish where my body is and where the background is. So that is number one.
So this is gonna be like the new software you're using from now on for live streams.
Yes, this is the software. I don't know any. I spent a long time learning this software. It would take me like a really long time to learn any other. There's a few different ones that people have, but so there's a few little goodies here I want to test. So first of all, if you were to watch the live stream right here, you would see the frame that it's going to look like during our interviews for the Longevity channel. Except for I've filled in. I have Dora the Explorer to my left here.
I see like Mary Poppins.
So Dora over here.
Morrison.
Dora will be. She's filling in for Max. So Max is going to be over here, okay? And Mary Poppins is filling in for Brent. Brent's going to be where Mary Poppins is. And who we're interviewing, right, tonight we're interviewing God. But that will be, this is just the test round. That will be where our person, that's the big box, that's who gets, the person we're interviewing gets the big box. We're just pretending like we're interviewing God tonight, for the sake of this test.
Yeah. It's a shame we didn't have this format for Richard Hart, but it's fine. It's all good.
Yeah. So
anyway, so who was the guest we were going to bring on?
Oh, the guest was, I was just tricking you. It was Dora the Explorer. I said, So originally the stream tonight was going to be Max and Alex, but then Max said he was sick. He's been really sick with like some kind of food poisoning. He doesn't have the corona, but it is bad. So he can't be in here tonight. I hope he gets better. Let's pray for Max. Do you pray ever, Alex? Is that part of your religion? Do you pray?
Only in social situations.
Only
because you can pray with your mind, right? You can pray with your mind. You can pray telepathically.
Yes.
You don't need a ritual to do so. You can if you want. I'm not going to judge, but
no, I meant like I didn't mean like let's pray out loud. I meant like everyone can pray for him. If
sure. Like Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just a gesture to help Matt. In case prayer works, they say prayer might work. Good.
All right. So criticizing transhumanism. What are some things you think we could criticize about the way we're doing things?
A little more let's do that. But let's finish the test first. So there's a little more goodies I want to make sure the elements work, because now it's like moving elements.
Sandra Winters.
Must be someone in the chat. Sandra Winters. She's my old friend. That's so cool. That's so awesome. Okay. Nice. Whoa, Matt's here. Oh, we need to get Matt in for the test.
Yeah, Matt.
Because I want to have.
Log on to Skype and just jump on.
Yeah, come in. Let me invite him in. If you're on Skype, I'll invite you in, Matt. Wow, Cool. Got old friends here. Oh yeah, I was gonna test out some goodies.
Yeah.
So watch what happens when I click this button. Boom. You see that screen? You don't see the screen right now, but your social media is showing.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's like it's gonna scroll through all your social media. It starts at YouTube, then it goes to Instagram.
Oh, I see it now. I see it now.
And this is
That's
all
cool.
gonna be live, so I don't need to. This is editing it into the real time. Real time editing live. And I can do this same thing for, and the reason it ends with the other the longevity is so the transition will work.
Yeah.
Live. It'll work with our logo. It'll seem like it's transitioning with the cool thing I did there.
Yeah.
So I can do it also. Let's test out Brent's. Okay, there we go.
All right. Testing Brent.
And it's working. You see this? This is the power of OBS and knowing what you're doing. Like, you could do fancy stuff.
Yeah.
You're
getting better and better at it by the day.
Yeah. I think
we're gonna start racking up viewers like once we like have our shit together.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta stop saying while I speak. That'll be me getting my shit together, and then for you it'll be OBS, and then
heck yeah.
Power duo. Nothing can stop us.
I lost my train of thought. I was gonna invite Matt. Now the reason we're inviting Matt is not just to talk to him, but it'd be very helpful to see if I can do 3 audio feeds, because I'm the way I'm getting your visuals right now and your audio is completely different than the way I normally pick up the audio streams. I'm picking it up an entirely different way. So it's like behind the scenes stuff. Like, that's why I'm curious to see if I can pull in Matt's audio and visuals, and this will help. It'll help me to know if this is going to work for tomorrow's stream.
Yeah.
Just think about this. Like, other YouTube channels that do, like, live streaming their stuff and, like, interviews, think of how much test runs they must go through. They must test all the stuff ahead of time.
I think they just get it. I think they just get it nailed down.
But it's okay. I can. Sure. Oh, bring it to me. Thank you. My dinner.
Hey.
All right, so. I think I tried to invite Matt. I don't think he's not there right now.
Matt, comment if you're still there.
Yeah, Matt, we want to.
I see 4 people watching. One of those is.
I'm calling him again.
Him.
Well, you know what I can also do is I can actually. Because I could actually just send him the link as well. That's a way to
sure
get him in. But anyways, let's want to criticize the transhumanism. I think I'm done with the basic test here. Everything appears to be working, unless the audio. It'd be great if more people are watching and they can verify the audio level.
We'll wait till Matt. Maybe Matt took a break. We'll wait for him to come back.
Yeah. So let's get on to your topic that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So I guess. This time we can criticize transhumanism instead of advocating for it.
Oh, yes.
What kind of critiques do you think you can mount against it? Like, how can we improve, our movement in general?
I love that question. Well, I think it's cool to, the cyberpunk aesthetic is really popular, especially because I was just watching some I think it was in-game footage of Cyberpunk, but it's just amazing. That game is so cool.
Is this Cyberpunk 2077?
Yes, I think so. But anyways, I was getting off point. So I was saying Cyberpunk is a really cool aesthetic. I think to improve the movement, we need to have little small movements of transhumanism that particularly cater to different styles. Like, there should be goth transhumanists. There should be pulling in their audience.
Yeah, so I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that their ideology, their worldview, their view of life, is formed by their rationality, reason. But really, that's probably not how it works. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of Friedrich Nietzsche? So his first book, this was back when he was a nihilist, and he was he was standing Richard Wagner, the guy who wrote the Flight of the Valkyries. He was kind of like Eminem, and Nietzsche was kind of like Stan. And then eventually he finds out Wagner is a proto-Nazi, and he's like, "Fuck you, Wagner," and runs off. But like while he was all this was happening, he wrote a book called The Birth of Tragedy, and in it this is like sort of like the beginning of his like kind of like postmodernist approach to human like reason. And essentially he says we have two kinds of reason, if you will. We have like the Apollonian and the Dionysian. So these are named after like Apollo and Dionysus, like the Greek gods. Like reason, but the other is like reason first and then aesthetics. But the Dionysian is aesthetics first and then reason. And he says this actually seems more, like how life is. People seem to like choose their aesthetics and then their ideology. And I like in my college, like a lot of my friends are communists, and like I've known them for a while, and I think like the way they get into communism is not necessarily by reading Marx, because like Marx is actually really hard to read, especially like if you've tried Capital, like just the first chapter alone, most people probably fucking quit. But I think a lot of the reason people get into certain political movements or certain ideologies is because of the aesthetic. Maybe they played fucking like Red Alert when they were younger, or they played Call of Duty as the Russians, and are like, oh shit, this is cool, and they sort of build on top of the aesthetic, and then like they think they have reasoned themselves into a particular ideology when in fact it was the Dionysian that helped them along the way. So we definitely should put aesthetics first before reason, because that's how people work. People aren't rational beings. We're fucking stupid. We like to pretend that we're gonna like ground our whole our whole sciences and language in like cold hard logic, and then work up from there. But that's not how we do it. We live in we're kind of like thrown into the world. We're thrown into certain social relations, and those social relations structure the way we think about the world. And a lot of the time, it's motivated by aesthetics. So yeah, I totally agree that we should cater to the aesthetic, like drive, the Dionysian drive of the kinds of people we want to attract. And how do you think we're not doing that?
Okay, so I was gonna say some more positive things, I guess. First, like I love the aesthetics of cyberpunk, and that's like the way you did the intro for our trailer.
By the way, link in the description to like our podcast. We did a really sick like cyberpunkish intro. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, I could even show the trailer for everyone, like while we're talking. Watch, I can.
Yeah, let's do that. Anyway,
so this is the trailer for our longevity channel. Make sure you subscribe to it. Without music, you're not hearing the music, but it's on screen.
Yeah. The music is pretty cyberpunky too, but essentially Nietzsche draws this from a lot of his he's not a Kantian, but a lot of his inspiration did come from Kant, and Kant said there was actually objective aspects to art.
I'm gonna mukbang my dinner here, so don't keep on going. Yeah. I'm listening.
Yeah, sure. So there are some objective aspects to art. Like, of course, beauty in art is subjective, but there's also the sublime. So the art has both the sublime and the beautiful. So the beautiful, that's shaped by your social relations, right? Rowan just talked about that. We've got different kinds of people, and we don't want to cater to different kinds of aesthetics here. But there's some parts of art that are objective. Like when you go to watch a movie, and you're at the edge of your fucking seat watching this movie. Let's say it's Rowan, pull up the scene, No Country for Old Men, shooting scene.
Okay.
There's this fucking scene in the movie No Country for Old Men where what's his face Javier Bardem is hunting what's his face the sheriff fuck, I forgot his name, Llewellyn. He's hunting Llewellyn, and he's like ducking behind fucking cars, and he gets shot in the arm, and you're just at the edge of your fucking seat watching this scene like, holy shit, he's gonna get killed, but not me. I'm safe behind this fucking screen.
Is that the
watching
motel street shooting?
Yeah, that's it. So you people at home watching this, here's what I mean by like the dynamic sublime, as in there is danger at a distance, danger at a safe distance. So all humans have like the fight or flight response built into their fucking neurobiology. So there's nothing subjective about this. We all feel this kind of like edge of our seat when we see somebody else in danger, but we're safe. And that's what distinguishes the sublime from the fear. Because if this was happening for real, we'd be like pissing our pants. But since we are behind the screen and Llewellyn does survive the fucking gunfight, we feel like this sense of relief afterwards, like as if we had just survived the fucking gunfight, even though we weren't there. And that's how you get the dynamic sublime. So that's like one of the objective parts of aesthetics. Another objective part is the mathematical sublime. So again, the things like even the mathematically beautiful is subjective. Not everybody thinks a fucking Fibonacci spiral is pretty. I mean like there's also like the whole like which races are the most attractive, like fucking facial proportions and like Chad versus incel and all this bullshit. But there is mathematical beauty might be subjective, but the mathematical sublime is not objective. And the mathematical sublime, unlike the dynamic sublime, is just fucking sensory overload. And that's what cyberpunk does. It fucking sensory overloads you. These neon cities, all these fucking ads, like the flying cars and shit, the sheer amounts of like, you ever seen Judge Dredd? Those fucking giant pan shots of the fucking Mega City 1?
Not sure.
It's like, what is it, like 50, in that movie, like 50 million people live in that city. And it's just fucking sensory overload, how big this place is. Same with space, like just, for a while I lived in a town secluded from major light pollution, so I could actually see the stars, like billions and billions of helicopters, you know? And that's the mathematical sublime. That's why people find space so aesthetic, because it's also this sensory overload.
We have an audience question. So
sure, what's got here?
So Sandra Winter says that she's getting tired of not working because of the coronavirus. What kind of advice would you give her? Like people who are out of work because of this coronavirus thing.
Oh, absolutely. So we human beings, we evolved in a way that we it's not evolutionarily advantageous for us to be sedentary for long periods of time. But there's a way you can trick your body into thinking that it's not sedentary. For me, it's 1 hour at the gym every day. But since there's no gym, I have to work out at home. And essentially what that does, if you do that first thing in the fucking morning, your body feels like it's just fought a fucking saber-toothed tiger, and now it's time to take a break. So you can use your whole day of like just sedentary loafing around to take a break. And like if you don't have a home gym, just any kind of exercise, like go out for a run, do push-ups or whatever. You have to trick your body into feeling like it's not sedentary, or you're going to get depressed. That's how it works for me. Another thing could be vitamin D. People being cooped up in their homes. I think I don't know how much vitamin D you need. This actually is dependent on race. So if you're like a black person, you might need to be consuming like twice as much as like a white person, because like just the like the melanin molecules in like your, not molecules, but like is going to like sort of block out the sunlight, so you got to take more vitamin D, and that's why a lot of people are depressed, because this is like a lack of vitamin D deficiency is correlated with depression. So that's another thing that we could be doing, because like work is what makes us tired at the end of the day, and that's how a lot of people find their purpose. I think everyone, if I had it my way, I'd be fucking self-employed, but a lot of people do derive like their sense of meaning from work. So if it's a question of being depressed because you're not working, absolutely find a way to just stimulate your primordial urges, your primordial like evolutionary functions, like your flight or fight response and your hormonal profile. Try to stimulate those. But if this question is about money, like I'm tired of not having money because of coronavirus, that's a different topic. That's a lot more difficult to solve. Absolutely. Why do you guys think Jama Warsame? You want to take the next one?
Is there another one?
Yeah.
Oh, why do you guys think Africa is not developed and that it is so chaotic? Africa is a complete mess. Is this because of culture?
It's because they were thrown into a global society. They were thrown into global liberal capital, and they had not gone through their industrial revolution. They didn't get the opportunity to, because of like colonization and whatnot. So they never got a chance to organically develop like Europe organically developed. Like Europe's Renaissance was very it wasn't entirely organic, because like the Arabs basically when Rome fell, sort of all the famous philosophers, their books were burned, except for Aristotle. Somehow Aristotle's works survived, and a Muslim by the name of Al-Ghazali discovered the works, and he called him like the great philosopher, like Aristotle, and he translated it all to fucking Islam. And then just the simple act of translating Aristotle's work gave the Muslims logic, gave them eventually like a primordial like scientific revolution before the Europeans got one, and they ended up producing a lot of the technology that Europe would later use after the Crusades. So when Europe came into like the Middle East, they took some of that technology back, and they took some writings back too, and they brought Aristotle back. And this guy,
were you a fan of Hypatia? Are you a fan of Hypatia?
This was. So this was the burning of the Library of Alexandria.
There's a movie you got to watch, because you're into philosophers. First of all, I love
Yeah.
Hypatia. Like, she's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
And there's a movie called Agora. You should watch that. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you told me to check this one out. I still haven't had time to check it out. But yeah,
good.
for sure.
It is so good.
So yeah, that's just an example of like the sheer number of knowledge that was lost. Like here's this for a comparison. Like in the Middle Ages, it was better to be a Roman peasant like on the streets of Rome than it was to be a fucking king in a feudal society, like feudal Europe. That's the fucking disparity here. Because if you look at like the average Roman citizen, they had like a nice house, they had like slaves and shit. It was always like sunny. They had like drainage. You don't want to live in a medieval fucking castle, dude. Like, they actually had nowhere to put the shit. So like when you shit, you kind of shit into the castle walls, and it just fucking stays there. And these castles fucking reeked, dude. And like all your food was fucking like contaminated and poisonous, and they didn't have like proper like storage methods. Again, like people think like science and philosophy compete with each other. Not at all. Science is derivative of philosophy, and if you burn the library full of philosophy books, you're not going to have science either. Actually, what Al-Ghazali did for Islam was he created the Islamic Golden Age, and that like actually was a thing that existed. Islam could have been Europe, except for one motherfucker named Al-Kindi. What Al-Kindi did was he's like, no, we don't need all these books. We just need one book, and that's the Quran. So he wasn't anti-science per se or philosophy. He just liked religion better, but that like sort of led down a slippery slope where they just burned all of fucking Aristotle's books too. But luckily, this guy, Thomas Aquinas, like an Italian monk in Europe, again, translated Aristotle from Arabic to like the European languages, and then they got the scientific revolution. So like then they had their golden age. Africa never had such a thing. It was very difficult for this. Like, have you ever read Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel? Mm-hmm. He has like a theory for why Africa didn't really develop. I don't think it's legit, but like I can see his reasoning. Essentially, he's saying like Africa had no domesticated animals, so like all they had was like fucking wild zebras and like lions and like fucking elephants and shit and like rhinos, like shit that's not really domesticable. Right. But in Europe, you have like oxen, sheep, and all this shit that you could easily sort of like organize into like agrarian societies. Also, speaking of agrarian societies, Africa, Jared Diamond says Africa is vertical. So like the crops that grow at one part of Africa won't grow in the other parts of Africa. So like the development of Africa is like pretty fucking skewed. Whereas if you look at Eurasia, from all the way from France to China, it's the same fucking latitude. It's relatively the same temperance. So what you're able to do is you're sort of able to trade with China and take their crops back to Europe, and then take European crops to China. So you already have like everyone like pulling each other up. Whereas in Africa, like you don't get that same kind of deal. So there's a lot of reasons why Africa might not have developed like their own industrial revolution. But basically, after colonialism, after the Europeans pulled out, the Chinese came in, and they're thinking like, oh, the Chinese, they're just here to trade with us. Essentially, what China's doing is they're putting all these African countries heavily into debt. Because like they're investing in railroads and shit, but the African people aren't going to own all those railroads. They're owned by the basically doing the equivalent of what Europeans did to Indians. Like, hey, I'll trade you this magic bead, like these very pretty beads.
Hey, you know what?
All this fucking, and they're like, sure, I'll trade it. And that's what China's doing to Africa.
We're being very bad interviewers because we had God here and we didn't even ask God any questions. What the heck?
Let's ask God a question.
We had God here. We kind of just ignored God, and we didn't even ask God a question. What the heck?
What's a question you'd like to ask God?
Okay. First of all, I would like to ask God, the secret of how to live forever. That would be my question. All the secrets of how to live forever. All of them. What's your question?
My question for God is P or NP. It's a computer science joke. You wouldn't get it. Keep going.
P or NP. Wow. Some people would ask God, what's the question? What's the answer to the life, the universe, and everything?
42.
Right. Any other questions for God? Seriously.
People in the audience.
This is a serious Serious thought exercise here. Like, what would you ask God? Like, literally, if you could meet God, you're meeting God.
That is a good question.
That's a freaking good question.
I'd say maybe Everett or Copenhagen. What's quantum mechanics like? Because we don't fucking know. We don't have the mental faculties to know for sure.
I would ask God. I would ask God if things like if things like soulmates are true, or if that's just bogus and there's like 10 or 20 people that would work perfectly, be a great match for you, or is there actually like just one person out there as like soulmates or something? Wouldn't that be like good?
Better question. God, which waifu is better, Rei or Asuka? And you'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, you weeb? Not even God is omniscient. There's some things even God regrets being omniscient over. Anyway, what were we talking about before? Oh, right.
You have God here. Can't you think of any more good questions? Okay. Questions for God.
If I had time to premeditate, I'd have a list.
I would ask God, like, what's his favorite stuff? Like, his or her. I said his. We don't know God's gender, right?
Well, in Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda is actually genderless. It's the only religion with a genderless God. I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is interesting. I would ask God, like, what's your favorite food? That's a good question. That's just as valid a question as any.
What does God eat?
What does God eat? I would want to know the tastes of God. Like, what's this God's favorite things? You know, least favorite things. I would ask God what God hates the most.
Can we ask Fedora questions? Do you ever wonder if there's a God?
Are you asking Dora the Explorer a question right now?
No, if God thinks there might have been a God that created God.
Oh, I thought you were asking Dora a question.
No, I said Fedora questions, as in like the questions atheists usually ask. Some of them are legit. Some, like God, why is there evil? That's a good question. It's called the theodicy. Question. Oh, we got more questions. Sarah Winter says, your information. My husband has been gone for almost 3 months. Where do you think that they're going to open stuff around? Oh, is it Carson? Does she live in Carson City? Is Carson City still closed down? Because I thought like Nevada was one of those early opening states. I know like we in California are still closed off, but.
Yeah. Good question. It's different. It's different all around the world, right? It's different in every state.
Yeah. I think like the red states, it's like the coronavirus is very, very political. So if you live in California like us, don't expect it anytime soon. But if you live in like, Nevada's a swing state, so I don't know actually. I think give it another month because Nevada's not that populated. It's just 2 million people, whereas California with like our 40 million people, it's going to be a longer time.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Now, what about the idea that God is a woman? Is that, and like a lot of people consider that totally blasphemous, right?
Yeah,
What do you think about that idea?
I think the original. I think God is genderless, non-binary. I think God is non-binary, because that's all that makes sense. The purpose of, like, the assumption is that God created Adam first. Therefore, if God creates man in his own image, God must be a man, and then he slightly modifies Adam to create Eve. So that's the narrative, that God is a man, but the man and woman, like, essentially, like the essence of man and woman are described by like their either their gender roles or like their genitals. So God doesn't have genitals. So I mean, maybe he could, but I think what God means by like his own image is like his own faculties for understanding the universe. Like some of that is projected onto Adam. I don't think he means Adam's body. I think he means Adam's mind. So that's one possibility, is that God isn't a woman or a man.
I
Next question. Raw Matt asks, does time exist in the next life, or is it removed? That's a good question. Have you ever, Matt, have you ever heard of Martin Heidegger? So Martin Heidegger asked that exact same question. He's like, what the fuck even is time? Like, when we try to measure time, obviously, like during the Industrial Revolution, we built clocks and we built calendars because people needed to get to work on time. We built time zones. We built trains. So we kind of sort of started to quantify time. But before that, time was just subjective for everybody. Like, Rowan, you were just watching a movie, right? Name a really boring movie. What's a very boring movie that you hate? I'll name one for you. Have you ever seen Jupiter Ascending?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a boring fucking movie. For me, it felt like 4 hours. But I can't quantify that scientifically.
Actually,
my friend,
I enjoyed it because it had a lot of weird things and it had things about life extension and everything, right?
well, for me, the just because of like the dialogue and like the concepts, like it was trying to be creative but wasn't really creative, and like that was like cringe to me. But my friend is like, I don't see anything wrong with it. My friend told me like he felt it was the normal 2 hours, but for me it felt like 4 hours. Like they went from one scene to another scene to another scene, and it was just never fucking over. Like right as I thought it was gonna end at like that fucking wedding, nope, it just goes to like another planet. So it just dragged on.
Yeah,
and on.
I wouldn't want to watch it again, but it was cool for the first time.
So what Heidegger says is there's no objective way to quantify that. There's no objective way to quantify this kind of time. So what he says is there's actually two paradigms for looking at time. So we got the clock time where we measure it, but that's independent of our consciousness. So when I say what's 6 hours like, that depends if you're on drugs. That depends if you're close to a black hole, because 6 hours could, like, if you've seen Interstellar, 6 hours can feel like years, depending on how close you are to a black hole. If you've seen Planet of the Apes, if your ship is going really fucking fast, thousands of years could pass by while you're just minutes in the ship, just going really, really fast. So what is it that, why is there two kinds of time? There's this scientific time, which Heidegger fucking hates because that's a social construct. He says it's a social construct of capital. So the bosses created the clocks so that we'd come into work on time, and so that we'd be able to send trains and like sort of connect industry across vast landscapes. But for humans, every human's conception of time is different. I don't agree on how long Jupiter Ascending is compared to you. Like, well, when we're waiting for an elevator, the kinds of thoughts on our mind might differ. Like, let's say I'm thinking about almost nothing, so that this time is going to pass by very slowly for me while I'm waiting for that elevator. And maybe you're listening to a song, you're listening to music, and the elevator gets there too fast. You want to keep listening to the music, you know?
Right.
You've worked like a boring wage slave job, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it suck?
Making salads.
Yeah, doesn't it suck making salads? Did you have a clock where you made salads? Did you look up at that clock every fucking minute?
No. But I looked at it enough.
Well, okay, let me rephrase it. Did you feel as though time was passing slower than it did outside of that job?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Yeah, I think so. Oh,
so
yeah, definitely.
That's what Heidegger means by phenomenological time. It means there's a kind of time that's subjective to the human person. So what Matt is asking is like, will time exist in the next life? So by next life, I think he means like another dimension. To which I'd say, of course, because if you go to another dimension or wherever you think, I don't know if Matt thinks like heaven is in this universe or in another universe, but if you go to another universe that has no conception of this scientific clock time, then all you have is phenomenological time. So yes, time as we know it scientifically would not exist. And also, like, I have my reasons for doubting time. The physicist Richard Feynman, he had a colleague named Joey Wheeler, and he figured out like time could just as easily run backwards as it runs forwards. So the idea of like the math we use to describe time is also a social construct created by the scientists, and that construct equally allows for a negative value for time. So time could just as easily go backwards. And maybe in this universe, like if you think of this universe as like a bubble universe, our universe is just one of the bubbles, but there's other bubbles. Some of these bubbles might be contracting, so time might be moving backwards in some places. And here it's just moving forwards. So some of the bubbles are expanding, some of them are contracting. You just have this huge bubble bath of universes where some of them run forward, some of them run backward. And because the laws of physics allow for that, it could be like that. You don't even have to go to another dimension. You don't have to go to another universe. You don't have to multiverse. You can just stay in this universe, and go to maybe just a different location in the universe where time runs differently. Like, we don't know. Right now is 13.8 light years away. That's all we can see, like a radius of 13.8 billion light years. Sorry, because that's how long the universe has lasted. That's how long light has had time to travel. We can't see beyond that because the light from those places hasn't reached us yet. So the universe could be infinitely big, and perhaps in some sections of the universe, time runs backwards. There's so much we really don't understand about time. And but if you're going to ask me what I mean by the next life for me is just a different kind of embodiment. So right now we're experiencing time through biological bodies, and our neurons, the action potentials in our neurons, 3 meters per second. That's pretty fucking fast. But if you do this whole like mind uploading shit, moving your brain to computers, a computer chip runs 3 million times faster than a biological neuron does. It can send electrons way fucking faster, something like 300,000 meters per second or something like that. Really insanely fast. So what do you think my phenomenological time is going to be when I'm inside that computer, since the clock time is faster? Do you think my phenomenological time could perceive a single second passing by as millions of years? That's possible. Just because your brain is in a different, you have a different kind of brain now. This is another kind of life. This is another kind of afterlife, if you will. And time runs differently in that afterlife. Time is relative. So yeah, a lot of ways to answer that. That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a really interesting.
He has a second one. What fruit was on the tree of life? Oh, that's a good one.
Who the heck knows? That's a big question mark, right? And
well, I think he's asking
whether the tree of life was anagorical, whether it was literal, whether it was symbolic. All of that is up for debate.
Yeah, so I don't think he's asking like what kind of fruit, like banana or orange or apple. I think he's asking what was the meaning of this. And I think we could look at the Gnostic view first. So the Gnostics were a heretical sect of Christianity, and they said the fruit of on the tree of life was consciousness. And by taking consciousness, they were allowed to rebel against God. But in the Gnostic interpretation, God is the devil and the snake was God. So like God is trying to talk to the people imprisoned by Satan. And I think Descartes, the philosopher René Descartes, might have been inspired by the Gnostics because he has a famous thought experiment. Have you ever heard of it? It's called Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am.
Matt's still watching. Hey, Matt, are you sure you can't come in here? We got room, man. We got
room.
We can kick out either Dora the Explorer or Mary Poppins. We got to pick who gets the boot.
Who gets the boot?
Who gets the boot? No way is Mary Poppins getting that boot. Sorry, Dora. Sorry, Dora. Can't get rid of the most practically perfect girl in the world.
Oh yeah, right. So the Gnostics believed that sort of Adam and Eve were trapped in like a simulation hell created by Satan, and Satan was the god who was telling them don't eat from the fucking tree. It's basically saying don't escape from the simulation, and the snake was actually God trying to talk to them to tell them to escape. It's sort of so weird how the Gnostics invert the fucking Christian metaphysics. But anyway, Descartes, the philosopher, he said this inspired him to make the cogito. He's wondering like, oh, what if I am a human and Satan has created a simulation? So like this is where the simulation hypothesis, it comes from Descartes. And he's saying, what if Satan created this simulation world? How would I know that I exist? And he says, by doubting that I exist. It proves that somebody is doing the doubting. So therefore something that is thinking must exist. And then from that he kind of derives how God would never let Satan deceive him and whatnot. But that's one version of what the tree of life, the forbidden fruit was. But another
you ever seen the art of the tree of life? How it's always depicted. It's like this tree where the branches and then the branches go underground. And
I see that it's always depicted as an apple, which is kind of the symbol of knowledge. That's why I've always thought it was either consciousness or knowledge. But the tree of life could have, or the forbidden fruit on the tree of life could have been a fucking like morality. Maybe they got a sense of right and wrong, and that's what the Bible actually says. Is that they developed a concept of right and wrong. So perhaps ethics or the concept of wrongdoing, the concept of duality, like good and evil, it's a metaphor perhaps for the schism of the universe into entropy and extropy, or yin and yang. But I don't like to use the yin and yang interpretation, because when Lao Tzu talked about yin and yang, he wasn't talking about good and evil. He was just talking about like potentiality and actuality. One is not more evil than the other. They're just opposing forces. So that's another possible interpretation. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not really that knowledgeable about that topic.
Okay, we'll just move on to the next one. Sandra Winters says, "Is coronavirus ever?" Oh, we've already answered that one. Is coronavirus ever going to get over with? Oh, Carson City. So, okay, so she is in Carson City. Yeah, it is going to get over with. Because honestly, I mean, if you go to type into Google, type in coronavirus live count, and you'll see that the curve is already flattening. You got to click on logarithmic though. So logarithmically, the curve is flattening. You can already see sort of getting to the peak of the bell curve. So if you calculate how many months passed before the peak of the bell curve, something like 3 months, you can expect it to completely die out 3 months later. So that's just my guess. Next question. Enlightened One asks, Kobe Bryant was murdered by Mick Jagger. Do you think Mick Jagger put a bomb on Kobe Bryant's helicopter?
Sandra's husband passed away. 3 months since my husband, John Scott Winters, passed away. That's sad.
Did you know the husband?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's sad.
That is pretty sad.
I'm very sorry for your loss, Sandra.
Me too.
That sucks. Death sucks. The worst thing ever. Yeah, that sucks.
Wait. Hang on.
Yeah, I mean, freak. My uncle died of cancer like a week and a half ago. Like one of my. It's crazy. People just dropping like flies, dying. My uncle was I was pretty close with him. Oh, it sucks.
Yeah.
Who was the person closest to you that ever died? Like the person that was closest to you?
For me?
Yeah.
My grandfather, Alzheimer's. You get to watch like a human life slowly be lost in real time. Traumatized the fuck out of me.
Whoa.
Before that, it was my dog, but that was just a dog. Like the death of the dog made me sad, sure, but the death of the human was very different because I could sort of imagine myself as my grandfather. So that was a totally different context. It freaked the shit out of me, and not soon after that, I discovered the life extension movement. So that's why. I actually see curing Alzheimer's as more important than curing like cancer and heart disease because I have a risk gene for it. So I might develop Alzheimer's as well. That's why I make so many videos on my channel about like neurotechnology and stuff.
Dude, that is so crazy. Like, because I've always been super afraid of Alzheimer's specifically. I mean, I've talked about that. I'm like, if there's any disease I'm like super afraid of, obviously I'm afraid of all of them. Anything that can kill you. But Alzheimer's, I've just always been freaked out by it, especially. And it's an interesting connection we have about that.
Another thing Alzheimer's did was it made me kind of doubt the existence of heaven. Because if a person has Alzheimer's and their parts of their mind are being destroyed in real time, they would come into existence in real time in either heaven or hell. So does an Alzheimer's patient feel like they're in two worlds at once? We don't really see them behave that way. They just kind of behave as if they're one person who's losing their memories. That's how we observe them to behave, and that's just fucking horrifying.
I've
to
literally
me.
had that exact same thought process
to have your brain slowly annihilated.
Yeah, that's Alzheimer's. I watched a movie about Alzheimer's. I can't remember what it was. This is my process. So I watched this movie about Alzheimer's, and literally after it, I started to have thoughts like, oh, this kind of like also if you just really just take a little step back and a bird's eye view, Alzheimer's really kind of does, if there's any good proof that all the consciousness is literally just in your physical brain and there's no other consciousness, there's no soul, there's nothing beyond the physical, Alzheimer's really does that. Like, that's what convinced me that it's all, I mean, it's all in my brain. I just need my brain, my physical brain to survive.
If you want to look at the Bible, though, so the Bible never tells us explicitly that there's some other dimension that your brain goes to. Because what the Bible actually says is there's going to be like a resurrection. Like at the end of time, God is going to like look at every particle and reassemble every dead person. Like just look at the quantum superpositions of everything and just reassemble people. So it's very different than this narrative that we see in our culture where we just go to someplace else when we die.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like that. Like not even in the Bible is it like that. The Bible just says at the end of time, everybody's going to get brought back to life. So it's like the quantum archaeology concept.
I literally think that I don't even think God could resurrect. Like, let's say there's a person that got cremated and they literally turned to dust. I don't even think God could bring that person back.
What if he had a very, very, very big computer? And what if he was able to create a closed system? Like the universe is not a closed system, but what if you were able to make one? To make a closed system somehow.
I'm sorry, how does that take ashes and bring that consciousness back into existence? It's just
essentially you have let's start getting very hypothetical here. Let's say
Brent's here.
Hey Brent, what's up?
Hey Brent.
Tell Lauren we said happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Lauren.
Feel free to come on Skype anytime. We need like a third person to test.
You can either take the place of Mary Poppins or wait, no, Mary Poppins has to stay. You can take Dora's place.
Yeah, so let's get hypothetical here. So imagine that God could build a wall. He's going to build a wall. He's going to build a wall, folks. He's going to build a cosmic wall that's 3.8 billion light years.
We actually, in order for Brent to come, we actually need to actually invite him. You can't just like tell him to magically appear here. He actually needs to have the link.
Oh yeah, but invite him on Skype.
Let me put the link. We haven't even shared this link with the messenger or anything.
Okay, yeah, sure. So imagine that God constructs, he builds a wall, folks. He builds a wall that's 13.8 billion light years in length. And then he builds another wall. And then he builds a plane. And then he builds 6 of those planes. And he encases the entire observable universe inside a box. And then on each of those walls, he's got fucking trillions and trillions of sensors. And every particle that hits those sensors relays information about what the particle did before it hit the sensor. And behind these sensors, God has an infinitely large quantum. And using the quantum computer, he triangulates the journey that particle made through the whole 10 to the power of 100 million years of the universe existing. And the quantum computer documents the journey of that particle, which people it was a part of, how it bounced in relation to all the other particles. So once all the particles have hit these walls, God would basically have information about every single particle that existed, and he would use the computer to create a simulation of what those particles did before they hit the sensors. So it's super, super hypothetical, but that's called quantum archaeology.
Super, yeah, it's yikes, that is just such a disaster. That's like a dumpster fire of eternal life.
Hey, what's up,
Brent?
Hey,
here, let me I'm trying to boot Dora and Mary Poppins so you can be there. Let's see here.
Just a spoonful of sugar.
Check this out.
Makes the medicine go down.
So the whole point of this, yes, spoonful of sugar, spoonful of trehalose.
Did you guys see the new Mary Poppins movie? I heard it was god awful.
Oh no, I don't watch remakes. I don't watch remakes of my childhood classics.
Guys, everyone in the stream cannot currently hear Brent right now. Just keep that in mind. So I have to pull your audio in here. Because I'm testing new stuff for testing to make sure our next stream tomorrow is gonna go smoothly. That's why I wanted to have everyone here. Let me just try to add your audio source in. Because I'm using a different process to get all the audio and visual feeds. So,
but you guys can hear me, right, Rowan and Alex?
I can hear you.
But I think everyone is about to hear you. Let's see. 5, 4.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep answering questions. From the box. Yeah. Anyway, so the idea of like quantum archaeology. There's actually people who believe this, and one of them was Nikolai Fyodorov. And Fyodorov, he's a Russian. He's a Russian philosopher.
Right now, I got your feed.
Got him?
So this will all, of course, be done well, but like when we're doing our interview tomorrow, I'll have everyone's feed in place before we actually go live. So.
Yeah, we'll join early. Yeah, we'll join early and get everything set up.
The reason that's so important that I have this new technology that I'm using to pull in the feeds separately. This way, I can arrange them on the screen recorder. I can arrange them in the live stream any way I want. Like with normally, I can't. So I can have the same arrangement we had for the Jose Cordero interview, where we had like the 3 on top and then boom.
I like that. I think we should go with that format every time because the person interviewing is a little bit bigger. The minions listening kind of like the Jose Cordero, like the Jose Cordero, because it needs to be established. It needs to be established. Like we're interviewing them about us, but we need to be engaged and asking the right questions, and that's what makes a good interview. That's what makes a good interview. I really like that part about Jose Cordero. Always there, just always there. I like how you can see all of our faces. I like how you can see all of our faces. I think if you can do that, Rowan, go with our model. What do you think so too, Alex?
Yeah. Yeah, the one problem is like we won't be able to do what you liked about the zooming in, unless Rowan finds a way to figure that out. I don't know.
Yeah, now the zooming in part, that all has to be done because it's going to be on OBS. That all has to be done ahead of time. People just have to make sure they're perfectly in frame. Because on a live stream, there'll be no zooming in of the.
We'll tell our guests to do that too, and if if they get like. I was interviewing Natasha Vitamore a couple weeks ago. She kind of started slowly going over to the side of the camera, and I just politely told her, like, hey, Natasha, can you move a little bit more towards the middle and then try and stay in that position? And I told her before we started recording, too. So I think it's just important to, one thing that I've learned in life is that if you don't at least tell somebody something, then you can't expect them to, always do it properly. You can't always assume that people know about things that when you don't explain it. So I think
ask and you shall receive.
Exactly. That's advice that Keith Cometto has given me too about certain things, and the more I've interviewed people and gotten better at it, the more I've realized that hey, you need to, like, when you sit down to do an interview with Joe Rogan.
Oops, I have you in Max Anderson's place. Why didn't I even see that? I put you into Max Anderson.
I'll be Max Anderson tonight. It's all good.
Fix that. Oh god.
All right, this is my YouTube channel is Max Eternal Life. I want you guys to subscribe. Okay, please subscribe, ring that bell, and make sure you click all. All right, so in any event, whatever you guys were saying, I've come in and hogged the conversation. So get back.
I want to know how your fun vacation
no, it's all right. We weren't interrupting anything. We were just answering questions from the audience.
Brent just had a fun vacation. Tell everyone how it went.
Yeah, you guys are gonna love Clear Lake. Can't wait to have you guys come up and hang out. It was a lot of fun. Baby got out to the lake for the first time ever. A 6-month-old baby on a lake. And he's making this weird noise all the time. Babies are so weird. I think you guys have heard it, but he's doing it a lot more now. You know what? I can't even emulate this, but we had some friends up there. It was beautiful. It got a little hot, but it was absolutely beautiful. All right, get ready to see. And then today's my wife's birthday, but on Saturday, she left the boat battery running. So she killed the battery, so we couldn't boat anymore on Sunday. Yeah, it kind of sucks. It was an honest mistake, but a rookie mistake. She's been boating her whole life. She should have known better. And then today, what happened? I tried to start my car. My battery's dead in my car. So I literally just bought the battery for the boat yesterday, and I'm buying a battery for my car later today or tomorrow.
Wow.
Wait, how'd you get back if you couldn't start the battery?
So this was just my car. We drove my wife's car to Clear Lake, and that's why we're able to laugh this off. My car has just been sitting in my garage for too long, and I haven't driven it, and it's a 7-year-old car now. So actually 7 years for a battery not to die is pretty darn good. It was time. I was playing Russian roulette with that one. So that was in my garage. The boat, she just left it on at night, so it was there. Yeah, so luckily neither of these stories are like somebody being stranded. They're just buying a new battery. It's no big deal. But in any event, we had a great time, and here's this freaking noise I was telling you guys about that my son is making now.
Wow.
What noise is that?
If I was in the jungle and I heard that, I feel like a dinosaur was about to eat me or something.
Yeah, I was about to say it sounds like
raptor.
It sounds like Velociraptor.
That's like freaking. I just entered Jurassic Park.
So I'm a dinosaur freak, and they call it Velociraptor, but actually, that's freaking Steven Spielberg in Hollywood right there, switching things up. In my Dinosaurs and Disasters class, freshman year of college, I learned about this from my awesome professor. It's called Dinosaurs and Disasters, and I watched all these shows. I still love dinosaurs. I know way too much stupid shit about them. But that was actually not a Velociraptor. It was actually a Utah raptor. There were 3 different levels of raptors, and the Utah raptors were the biggest, but Hollywood thought that Velociraptor sounded like more fierce. So those are actually Utah raptors that are like 9 feet tall that they call Velociraptors in the movies. So it's just
Velociraptors are only 6 feet tall. They're like us. They're our height.
I think the Velociraptors are more like 4 feet, but I'm going off of like 17-year-old memory. So I'll take your word for it if you. It's something like that. I thought there were 3 levels, and I thought the Velociraptors were actually the shortest ones. And then there's these other little smaller ones that I think aren't in the raptor classifications that you see in some of the movies too, like the really small ones.
Yeah, Gallimimus?
I don't remember their names. I don't remember those.
Speaking of dinosaurs,
I used to be like really into dinosaurs and shit. You ever seen Land Before Time?
Yeah, I love that movie.
And all the spin-offs. I've seen Land Before Time
there's like fucking 20 of them now.
Right.
But as a kid, I had all these like dinosaur like picture books, and I was trying to like triangulate which dinosaur was being shown on screen by like just comparing it to the fucking picture. My parents thought that was fucking adorable, but then like I figured out that these things don't exist in real life. As a kid, I thought they existed somewhere. I didn't even like note the fucking title, Land Before Time. So I thought like
we're gonna bring him back to life.
Doesn't fucking have dinosaurs, but other continents do.
Have you guys heard that there's this
Jurassic
conspiracy
Park
that literally there's a lot of people who are convinced now that dinosaurs never existed and it's all cover up, it's all faked?
Yeah, it comes from the creationist movement, essentially to make it compatible with like the Bible. They just said like the dinosaur bones were put there by Satan, but there's other creationists who say like, these pictures of dragons, those are the dinosaurs, and that one I find more believable. Like the idea that some fossils would be closer to the surface and they would be dug up by these medieval civilizations, and they did invent a myth like, oh, St. George slew the giant fucking T-Rex, but we'll just call it what a fucking T-Rex is. I think that's possible, just looking at the fucking skeleton and the fossils and whatnot. Running Bear says dinosaurs apparently actually had feathers. Yeah, that's true. Even the fucking T-Rex, they all had fucking feathers. They weren't reptiles. They were like kind of like the evolutionary step between reptiles and birds. So, fuck. My childhood, Land Before Time, forever destroyed upon learning that. Maybe we'll find a way to clone one and know for sure, but it's not possible really.
We should ask DNA God a question about
DNA
dinosaurs.
has a half-life. DNA has a half-life of 4,000 years.
We should ask God
to get
how
like
the
100 million
dinosaurs
years.
died. Earlier we were asking questions to the Alanis Morissette, like playing God in the movie Dogma. Brent.
Oh goodness.
So if you had a question for God, what would you ask God?
Can I stay longer? This is cool.
Oh yeah, I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Can I stay longer? This is cool.
Yeah, you'd be like, you did a pretty good job. There's a few glitches, There's Mormons. There's like some weird glitches that I don't really believe. Kind of gives it away. But you did a good job for the most part.
But if you just say longer, then God can grant you just another day, and that sucks. You want a lot longer. You want eternity.
I don't want to get greedy, God might be like, hey, I'll cut your time in half if you ask stupid question. What happens when your kid asks a stupid question? Be like, enough of that.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Exactly, pretty much. I love Alex spending time with you more because you've clearly watched different movies, and I love the movie quotes. So it's exactly what I don't even know exactly what movie that's from, and it doesn't matter because you've heard that type of line.
I think it's Empire. I think it's Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
Gosh, right? Yes, I just watched all 9 Star Wars in December. And
doesn't that take 2 days? Those movies are long as hell. They're like 3 hours.
I got time, boys. I got time. I can get focused on something and accomplish a mission.
That's what I want. I want to stop trading my time for money. But like as a young person, you have to, because in your 20s, like you're
Happy
like,
birthday, Lauren!
Happy birthday!
You're on the live stream, Lauren. Say happy birthday.
I am?
Yeah.
Oh.
You're live to the world. It's like Truman Show.
Right.
Live.
Yeah. Truman Show. I'll be more quiet.
Okay.
She said I was being too loud. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, that happens to me too. Like when we're live streaming, I get all animated and like hyped up on adrenaline, and then like my roommates will hear that, so I gotta be. I don't think they're sleeping yet, so I'm good.
Yeah, it's only 10:30 ish.
All right, I know we're live streaming, but I haven't got to talk to you guys in like 4 or 5 days. So can I run through a few things real quick? Nothing too private. Anything
Sure.
here? So we have Bryant Kennedy tomorrow. I'm excited about that. Super awesome guy. I read through the Facebook messages you guys sent, and I think you're pretty spot on. So I like the interview style you guys have come up with. And then Bill Falloon, real quick. I did not get a chance to watch that, but I really freaking wanted to. So I want to try and do the timestamps for that. Maybe we can break that up. Do we want to just wait to release that until Thursday, since we're doing Bryant Kennedy tomorrow?
Yeah, we can do that.
That works.
And then we'll start editing another one after that. And what we should really try and do, Alex, I know you have work, but Rowan, we're going to meet with your brother tomorrow with Vladimir and Max, if he can join as well. And see if we can start maybe improving the vitamin and supplement nutraceutical sales, and then ramp into maybe other sales of things that are harder to get.
Sounds good. Sounds freaking awesome.
So those are kind of the things that were on my mind that I was thinking about. Really good job on Peter Voss. I think it looks great. I haven't had time to promote any of this stuff, so I think we've just kind of put it out there, which is totally cool. But good feedback from people. Andreas re-uploaded it to his YouTube channel already. He liked it so much. Like just a little 2-minute clip from it. But and then I'll tell you guys some more stuff privately that I sent in the Facebook message about some other stuff. So in any event, those were a few things I was thinking about, and missed you guys this weekend.
Missed you too.
It's, back to like being productive and working on stuff. It was just like boom, Memorial weekend, hanging out with friends for a few days, and then boom, wife's birthday, and in-laws just came over. We had a cake. My dog got fleas, had to clean her. It's kind of been one thing after the next. I'm excited to get back to work and work on things with you guys. So excited for Bryant Kennedy tomorrow.
Definitely.
Me too.
Me too.
And then I got back in touch with Eric Maroller. I'll be interviewing him hopefully soon, maybe in the next few days on my channel. But we'll be promoting it as like a part 1 and part 2, like from the very beginning. And he's agreed to come on Longevity afterwards. So maybe we'll get through some of the baseline stuff. You guys can watch that. You, Rowan, Alex, Max, and then I think we could all do a kick-ass interview for like a part 2 on the channel if you guys are still cool to do that.
Definitely.
Yep. Yeah, that works.
Cool. He's a very interesting guy. But it's late. I probably shouldn't stay on too long, just again because it's my wife's birthday, so I can let you guys get back to doing your thing. But it looks like everything's working great with the live stream for tomorrow, right?
Yeah. We got 3 people on now, so I think it should work out.
Yeah,
just
as
fine.
long as I have like 10 minutes to set it up, 10-15 minutes, like a pre.
Yeah,
I
we
think
can take a half hour, man. I'll join early. Like I'm available.
Yeah.
We should make this a priority so that it works out well for Brian.
So if this works out, like this is great because we're not gonna have to edit stuff anymore. Like this is definitely the way to do it.
This is the way to go. This is the way to go. It's just do it live, do it right. No need for editing. No need for any of that nonsense. On to the next one. Like this is definitely the way to do it if we can do it right. So taking an extra half hour to set up beforehand to make sure it's done right until we all feel comfortable that we can just like boom, cameras in place, lighting in place, this in place, for like more practice. Like maybe we can cut that time down. But I think to start, I'm cool to join a half hour. I don't expect everybody to, but I think we can figure it out.
Heck yeah.
Yep.
And poor Max sounds like he's not feeling too well, huh?
Oh, it's so sad. I recommended he drink activated charcoal. He didn't even know what it was.
That's where he got us,
activated
right?
charcoal is the best thing ever.
Best shit.
You gotta have it always on hand.
And what is it? It just helps
It's
get
for,
rid of
it's for your
viruses that
DNA.
you have.
Yeah.
What's that, Alex?
Molecular level DNA.
And longevity, right? So there's been mice studies where mice live like 40% longer if they're fed enough activated charcoal. It's really shows that it really does extend life, the life of mice at least. So
Nice. Well, I'm not a mouse, but I like it when I see that mice are living longer. You know, it's just because I like mice, though. I mean, I really like them, so it's cool to see them live longer. Yeah, I want humans to live longer. That's what I'm focused on the most.
absolutely.
Human length. If you guys notice, whenever I like write or talk, I always say I'm interested in human life extension. I'm not like that interested in mice life extension. I'm really not. So it's just I'm not influencing you guys, but that's how I communicate.
Yeah, thing is, like, we can't. It's really, really, really hard to do clinical trials, which is humans. All we can do is like for a lot of these products is just preclinical because there's like ethics issues and shit. What we need is like a seasteading state where we could take like fucking criminals and like pedophiles and shit. Like we could send bounty hunters to just capture fucking pedophiles and like bring them to our fucking seasteading island, and then we like pump them full of like chemicals and shit and see what happens. So it's pretty fucked up, but like I mean, pedophiles are more fucked up, so I'm okay with it.
I'm just more into like freedom. I don't know. It's like it's such a crazy concept these days for most people, but I really just like to empower individuals to make their own decisions. I think more highly of people. I think a lot of people are like complete dumb idiots, like in certain ways. We have idiocracy, but they're kind of been made that way by our society. I think people's actual like intuition and ability to reason in various ways are decent. And so for example, like you don't even need to do what Alex said. That works. All you have to do is give people freedom and educate them and try and educate people and let them decide if they want to get a gene therapy. And they're like, oh, it's $1 million. Like, do you know anything about this person? What if they're worth $2 billion? $1 million would be 1/2000th of their net worth. What's 1/2000th of your net worth? Do you try and stop people from buying a cheeseburger at the ballpark because it might be too expensive for them? Like, people are so dumb.
Yeah, that happens. It's called price controls.
Right. Like words just come out of people's mouths, and it's like, have you thought about this before you started talking? Like, exactly. And
here's how countries fail. Like we step one, it's a 3-step process. Step one, we ask for a bunch of shit.
Right.
To get to find, but we don't want them to raise our taxes, and we don't want them to cut spending.
I want everything and nothing, and I want to give nothing.
Step one, they print a fuck ton of money. Step two, we're like, oh shit, why is there a fuck ton of money? Because now everything costs the same. We want price control. So step two, you have fucking price controls, and then step three is when these companies are being hit with the price controls. They're like, hey, it's no longer worth my time and labor to produce this thing, so I'm just gonna stop producing it because of your fucking price controls. Step three is starve. That's what I call the Venezuela model, and people don't get it. Like they can't put 2 and 2 together to like I understand people
2
really
plus 2 equals 5 in this world, Alex. 2 plus 2 equals 5 to some of these people. It's like, no man, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Always have, always will. There's some things that just are and they're not changing, you know? But people don't get it. They haven't read history and economics to see like how obvious this is.
What do you think of Peter Thiel's quote? He had a famous quote. He said, I no longer believe democracy and freedom are compatible. What do you think about that?
I'm a big Peter Thiel fan. I've listened to hundreds of hours of him on YouTube over the years. I've read his book 3 times. I've read lots of his writings. Look at his track record, right? Don't worry too much about words that come out of people's mouth. Look at what he has done. He created PayPal. He fucking created Pancetera Capital, you know? He literally was like running essentially the Pentagon, essentially, because the Pentagon was buying products from his fucking security company to run their security, planning, you know, in the Middle East and stuff. He tried to create a new currency, you know, to compete with the dollar or PayPal. He failed at that and became a billionaire, like, by failing. I'd love to fail at anything and just, like, the outcome of failure is, like, I'm a billionaire. That's cool. I mean, I'll be okay with that. That's what Peter Thiel did. He invested in Tesla early stage, SpaceX early stage. I can go on and on and on. First angel investor in Facebook. I mean, the man's a freaking genius. And one of my favorite quotes of his is he said, you know, he's a Generation Xer, so, you know, he grew up when they just landed on the moon. Like all these physical innovations were taking off. That's their generation. Elon Musk too. This is a deep, deep thing about like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, their drive for space. Same thing with essentially Richard Branson that a lot of people don't fully understand. It's what they were taught as kids. Like programming as a child is hard to unprogram. And they were just taught that like everything was getting better. So Peter Thiel's famous quote is, we were promised flying cars and instead we were giving 240 characters, which is 280 characters. I think it was originally 140 characters, and then Twitter doubled it to 280 and kind of screwed up his quote. But that's essentially still the same thing. So
that's interesting. I never thought about, like, I was wondering why Xers love space so much, and I think
Alex, I'll expand on it real briefly and then let you guys ponder on this or whatever. But essentially, the last part of this that he says is he's like people, and then he gets into his whole pitch about how software is just eating everything, right? So it's where all the profit's gone to. So it hasn't actually, fixed big manufacturing things and cars and planes and trains and automobiles and all that, infrastructure that you need to house all those things and stuff, like highways and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So we've just become stagnant in America on those things because the profit model's not there. Meanwhile, we're like innovating like crazy and still creating the biggest wealth on the planet through IT, through information, because it's software. And so, but he's saying that's changing soon because software is going to be turning into hardware. 3D printing, certain things like that are going to start really changing the manufacturing game. And final thing I'll say on this is one thing that I've learned from being a Tesla investor, but not a car person per se, is just the really appreciation from Elon Musk of like how difficult it is to actually manufacture. Us in the Joe Rogan podcast a couple weeks ago, he's like, listen, kind of said what Alex was just talking about. If you guys make it too hard for us, what this Atlas Shrugged book is about. It's funny I said 3D printing. This is a 3D printed version of me when I was in 2013 from a company I was invested in called 3D Systems. But Atlas Shrugged, this book right here, I'm not a huge Ayn Rand fan. She was great in some ways, but essentially it's like, hey, if you just like stop us from all the people who are actually producing shit, the entrepreneurs, then maybe we'll just say, it's not even worth it anyways. I was trying to save you idiots, but you're too freaking stupid. So maybe I'll just stop. And there's precedent for that. Some things like that happen. But if you have a crazy enough person like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, these people are addicted to work. They can't stop. Those people aren't going to stop. But do you think
that book is where the seasteading movement comes from? Because I noticed a lot of the seasteading stuff can be traced back to the Galt's Gulch.
100%. Patrice Friedman, friends with him. He's the grandson of Milton Friedman, and he's a big proponent of seasteading. He's the one that like started it, and Peter Thiel backed that as well too. Crazy shit, man. It's really crazy stuff. If you guys haven't heard of it, definitely look into it. It's super interesting. It's basically died off at this point, but man,
there's still a bit. I think there's people building just really big yachts and trying to make those into countries, but there's some complications with that. Titanic like complications.
Imagine if you're trying to like create a country. Like, think of how the world actually works. Who do you talk to? How does that work? United Nations. Who created the United Nations? How does that work? Who actually owns it? How does that work? How do these people get elected? You start asking these type of questions you're not really taught in school, and you're kind of like, oh, now I know how the world actually works, and it's nothing like what I was taught as a kid. And then you wonder, like, well, why wasn't I taught these things as a kid? Because they probably didn't want you to fucking know, man. Like, normally the simplest answers are like, normally, not all the time, but they're normally pretty accurate. And that's kind of how I learned how the world really works. If you want to try and looking at seasteading, right? Because that's what they want to do. They want to create their own society in the middle of the ocean on a big enough like landmass that they can create and that can float, and they can have like, the bigger the better. In the middle of the ocean, have a whole society, 10 million people, ideally. It's a novel, crazy idea to just like poop your own land.
China's doing it. Like, they're making artificial islands in the South China Sea to put military bases on. So you just got to build it close enough to the landmass, and perhaps in like a geopolitically advantaged point. Like, for example, Singapore. I don't know how much of the success of Singapore was due to their political model, which is very interesting to me. But a lot of it might have just been due to geopolitical luck, just being in the middle of the strait where all the ships run between the east and the west. I think just build your little artificial island in a strategic location, and you could reap all the benefits. But you're right about like the people who write the curriculums are not going to teach you to do your in school are not going to teach you to do your taxes. They're not going to teach you to budget. They're not going to teach you to invest because they don't want you to do those things. They want you to be dependent on them. Otherwise, you'll fuck up like the model that they're trying to push.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just kind of like, I don't know.
They want you to be a tax. They want you to be a tax cattle. Like basically, they want you to produce shit that they can take. They don't want you to like plan for financial independence. They want you to trade your time for money rather than invest in yourself. So I don't know. I'm rambling.
No, I don't think you're rambling at all. I agree with everything you stated there. So, trying to think of other things that I wanted to update you guys with. Yeah, I talked with Vladimir a little bit this morning, and do you guys know? So he's in St. Petersburg, but he's going back to Moscow soon. Him and Anya, because Moscow's kind of like opened back up, and he's going back to his position as CIO at this bank. But he was like, yeah, he's like, I'd rather just stay in St. Petersburg because I love freedom, because he was basically wasn't working the last couple months because of that. Because Moscow really got hit hard, like New York. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I didn't realize
big
that
city, 12 million people. It's huge.
Right. It's like basically same size as New York, essentially, humongous. So St. Petersburg is a big city too, but in any event, I didn't realize St. Petersburg was one of these cities in the world, like Alaska, where it just never gets dark this time of the year. So they just have like straight. The sun does set a little bit, and they have like these incredibly blue, beautiful skies that he's shown me. Like I was just on video chat with him maybe, I don't know, 10 hours ago, and I saw it again. It's incredible. But I didn't know that. Did you guys know St. Petersburg? But Moscow, not. Moscow, it does get dark because it's just a 3-hour train ride. St. Petersburg, no dark at night right now. Did you guys know?
No, I did not.
Yeah, St. Petersburg is really up there. It's like Canada.
Right.
Winter is like being inside a black hole, like slowly feeling the Earth being sucked into a black hole, whereas the summer is like eternal fucking like daytime. You have to get like really fucking dark curtains to block out the sun if you want to sleep. It's interesting though, because like you hang out with your friends and you lose track of time. Like I know that more than anyone. I've been up for like like I regularly stay up like 40-hour periods. Something you shouldn't do if you're trying to extend your lifespan, but it is
as long as you sleep double the amount of time next time you can, right? Just joking. You shouldn't, because you can't recover the sleep.
You can't. Yeah, there's no sleep debt. You can't pay it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
Speaking of sleep, I learned something really cool recently about sleep. So you guys have heard of CBD and THC, but there's another cannabinoid that forms from THC. So THC will degrade into a different form called cannabidiol or something, CBN, I think. And that specific cannabinoid, that is the degraded form of THC, that is the sleeping cannabinoid. That one is supposed to help people sleep, and it's supposed to be non-psychoactive. So the psychoactive part.
So you say we all just need to be smoking a bunch of old weed?
Yes.
That's just like
basically and
old
isolate it and sell it.
There might
boys, we might have a business opportunity.
There
right
might
here.
already be people doing that. So like me,
they'd have to hold out and not smoke that weed for like a long time. They'd have to have good willpower.
Yeah. And I was watching a clip by that doctor. What's the does sleep doctor guy? The cool one. No, the other one. The guy.
Dr. Michael Bruce.
Michael Bruce, the one that Bryant interviewed.
Yeah. We will almost certainly interview him on our longevity channel. I'm still keeping up a relationship with him, just so you guys know. We email back and forth.
He's awesome.
So we should get him on. He's big time. He's
awesome.
Really,
and he's the one who turned me on to this whole CBN thing. He's the guy. So thank him. And he said that, he talked about the old weed. Basically, you take the weed and let it get really old, and that THC will degrade down into the CBN. So he says CBD does help somewhat for sleep, but you need to take a lot. Like that's why I've been trying to take so much CBD, because I take enough of it and it does help me sleep. I noticed that, but you have to take a lot, so much to the point where I described that it almost alters your thoughts a little bit and it has almost psychoactive properties in itself. CBD does, if you take enough of it. But but you need to take so much for it to help you sleep, and then it's not cost effective because CBD is not that cheap, you know.
Right.
To take 16 vialfuls, to 16 like full dropperfuls of it, you know, that's a lot of. And so it ends up just being too.
Once again, though,
it ends up costing too
for
much.
a billionaire, it's probably pretty cheap for them. So you just let the free market happen and let people make their own decisions. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I sound crazy talk right now. Give people like freedom
100%,
to make their own decisions.
100% agree with that.
Man, I think people have lost their minds with this COVID stuff. It was weird. Like, what? I took my wife out to lunch today, and we went to this. Finally, the restaurants have even opened back up. I mean, I was just thinking, when the hell was the last time I went out to like? And I haven't been out to a restaurant like the longest time. Is what I realized. This is so weird. This COVID-19 stuff. We're sitting down in this nice restaurant. All of the employees are wearing masks and gloves, and it's just bizarre, man. It's just really bizarre for me personally. And every one of the booths, every other booth was blocked off. And we went to this place called Lucky Dog, and they just had a little sign there on each one of them that said, "Your imaginary friend, reserved for your imaginary friend," is what it said. You know, I thought it was, I guess, kind of cute or whatever for them to do it like that, but it was weird. Have you guys been in a restaurant like in Eden?
I picked
recently?
up I picked up pizzas. I picked up pizzas for my workplace, and like everyone's like they have you like wait outside like fucking 10 feet away from the door and whatnot. It's so weird. I mean, like a lot of the things I don't understand is like if you're wearing the mask, why are you still social distancing? Because it's kind of like redundant, right? Like I mean, the whole point of the mask is to prevent you from sneezing on other people. But then why are you standing so far away if the mask is just going to catch the sneeze, implying that the mask even works at all? I think it's just simulacra. They're trying to like sort of engineer by having everybody wear a mask. They're trying to engineer the atmosphere of a pandemic when there's not really. It's not as bad as H1N1 and some of the other pandemics. So,
I mean, there's just so many different ways to look at this. Like what you're saying, in my opinion, is valid. Like it's hard to prove that is the problem with it, right? Like to catch these government people who are creating these policies in like that dark smoky room with the cigar where they actually said that and it's on camera. But like, yeah, I do agree that's like the general agenda because it just doesn't make sense. And I think I posted this on Instagram, but I just want to read this real quick. This isn't mine. It's going around the interwebs, but it says, COVID-19 facts. The virus can travel 6 feet. It cannot travel 6 foot and 1 inch or greater. It can live on all surfaces except anything that comes in the mail from Amazon. It does not live in Target, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, or any grocery store. It is only deadly in bars, restaurants, small businesses, hair salons.
Don't forget beaches.
It doesn't say that, but yeah, beaches, and especially churches. And it cannot live on your food as long as you get it to go. And it just shows, like, guys, the government is just in way too much control here. They're picking winners and losers in our society. Like, if you've actually studied political science and economics and any type of a brain at all, like, this is not my opinion. This is the definition of socialism. Government picking and choosing winners and losers in society by controlling the means of production, who gets to work and who doesn't. And it's out of control, in my personal opinion. Be like, this guy's far right. Like, call me whatever. I'm not left or right. I've read economics and I've read history. And this is not hard to figure out. Like, the things that I'm saying are true. They are picking and choosing who gets to stay open and who doesn't, based off like their. And then the word essential. Oh, like that's just basically the government saying we get to choose who gets to stay open and who doesn't. We'll decide what's essential. And they use language to get it through. Like, oh no, they're choosing what's essential. Have you thought about what's essential and who's deciding what's essential? Because words are just words.
Decided through a bribe in one of these dark cigar smoky rooms you were talking about.
It's such a joke, man. And I'm the guy that always talks about idiocracy on my YouTube channel. I just thought people were smarter than this. Like, is their plan really unfolding this quickly, this fast? I mean, if we were in a video game right now, they just straight up Mario'd us going from like level 2 to level 8 on like one tunnel. Like, look at how quickly shit changed.
It's a good analogy there.
Our whole world just upended in like a few months.
You're
It really
right.
actually happened in days or weeks. And everybody, if you talk out about it at all, like, are you crazy? Are you a fringe right lunatic conspiracy theorist? I'm like,
Oh fuck! You know what I get?
man, I just read books and I'm like a critical thinker and I've
ever
been
get, like,
alive for 35 years
Right.
and this has never happened. No, it's actually more like that.
You ever get
Right,
the-
this is
you ever
as
get,
big as the internet. It's
Right,
like,
people ever tell you like you're anti-science, you're anti-science.
Right.
Fucking not.
Immediately, you're anti-science.
They treat science like the church. They treat it as an entity that's responsible for dispensing knowledge to the populace. Like,
We're creating a government that wants to tell everybody that they are science, that they are God, that they know best. But this is why I have all my quotes. So you're around me long enough. I've compiled all these quotes, and they're all just up here. And one quote I love is, "They must find it funny, those that take authority as truth rather than truth as authority." And one thing that Peter Thiel talks about all the time is that people misunderstand what a contrarian thinker or investor is. A contrarian is not somebody who starts with, I'm just going to agree with something that's unpopular or something that most people don't believe. No. It's not. You start off by just figuring out what's true, regardless of what everybody else thinks is true, and then just holding your fucking ground and not letting the social pressures from an insane society let you forget what's actually true. And that's what these people are so brilliant at, like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, these other
yeah,
Jeff
dude,
Bezos.
Elon Musk.
They know it's true, and they build from there.
He said, I've got 10,000 employees in Tesla, and if you don't open it back up, I'm just gonna fucking move. And they fucking blinked. Like, he just stared them down, and they fucking blinked.
Right.
So like all it takes is like a little bit of threat, and they'll back down. It's a completely abstract institution, and only when you actually move do you notice like your change.
This video is about 9 years old or something on YouTube. I thought I showed one of you guys this recently, but it's called Tiny Little Dot. It's got like tons of views right now at this point, but it's this tiny little dot, seriously, and then it's like hundreds of thousands of other dots, and it's like rah rah rah. It's basically the government, this little dot, and they're like, I will. What's gonna happen if we don't pay our taxes? Like, I will rain down with terrible forces, and it's like this.
Fire and brimstone.
I can't stress enough. It's a tiny little dot, like the size of my eyeball, compared to this whole thing. You know, this whole screen I'm on, or it's even smaller than that. And they're like, oh no, please don't hurt us. We'll pay our taxes. We'll pay. You know, it's just like, it's trying to tell you like we are supposed to like control things. The individuals, decentralization. You know. But things have become too centralized and controlled, and people trust in their government and in mainstream media. Why else? When would you ever, if you had a friend or somebody who just constantly lied to you, you constantly caught them in lies, and they came on and talked to you in weird voices and stuff, oh, this is Channel 23 News or whatever. You're like, what the hell are you doing? Dude, talk normal, like a normal person. What is wrong with you? But yet these people...
You're a danger to our democracy, Bryant.
Yeah, but yet these people like come on mainstream media and politicians and they talk like this, and you expect them not to lie? Like, dude, they have their lying voices on. They're wearing ties. They're talking in their lying voices. Of course they're lying to you. Don't listen to them. What's wrong with you, man? Listen to people who like talk real and don't have their incentives lined up to just completely just spew out lies to you, right? Because that's what the mainstream media and our government basically is, you know. And it's just, I hate to sound cynical. This is just how I've learned reality works. And by learning how reality works, I've actually improved my life. It's helped me get financial freedom. Because whatever they say, I'm like, oh shit, they're creating a monopoly on all this new shit now. So they get more power, right? And man, it is just crazy to watch. Because at the end of the day, all you need to know about government is that they have a monopoly on two things. They have the monopoly on money, which they don't deserve and won't always have and haven't always had. But they've had it for a few hundred years and they have it now. They will go back. They won't have it forever. I'm working on that with cryptocurrency. And then they have the monopoly on violence, right? That's their military, and that's also all of the other local civil things like police departments, things like that. But if you take away their right to coin money and their power over money, and they can't pay their army or their people, I mean, it's game over. They lose all power. You see this throughout history. Almost every military, they're out of here once they can't get paid anymore. You know, the Romans, their gold started getting, they're out of here. Yeah, as soon as they started to see that it was fool's gold or that they were skimming.
Basically, what happened was like the silver mines in Spain, like they ran out of shit, so they kept melting down their gold coins so that it was like 1/300th of the value, and they just quit and joined the fucking like the Ostrogoths, or sorry, the Visigoths.
Yeah, I mean, the moral of the story is basically that people need to wake the hell up, man. Understand that you have all the power. The power is within you. The power is within all of us collectively. Like, I like people individually. I don't like groups. George Carlin said, like, I don't like any group that makes me wear a hat. Oh, you got a hat. I got a hat. Oh, I was like, I like people individually. I hate fucking groups. And I feel the same way, man. Anytime, but you need corporations to get things done. I'm not saying like everybody for themselves. But
those aren't even groups. Those are relations. Those are systematic, like, contracts.
Right.
You can still have contracts and not like subsume your identity into this greater them, this Das Man, as Heidegger calls it. You can still like be yourself and not be influenced by the people you are exchanging with, essentially. But
yeah, good point.
There's a comment in the comment section. Joe Bennett says for Brent, libertarianism will not get us to transhumanism. I think this Joe Bennett should watch out for the ism. The ism is a prison that your mind constructs for itself.
I've never called myself a libertarian. I'd have to actually just state real quick for
because the isms. My problem with isms is that the isms are invented by people who aren't me, and I sometimes disagree with the people who invent the isms. So I mean. Essentially, like, what do you?
I would call myself libertarian.
My just quick rebuttal of that would be like, yeah, I've never called myself a libertarian. I don't walk around going, I'm a libertarian. I talk about economics. I talk about history, right? So I try to look at how reality actually works and just talk about that and think about that and focus my life around that. So if you study how reality actually works, you'll see that free markets in general are incredible for everything, for your health span, for your lifespan, for quality of life, for happiness, charts measured, everything. Productivity, like you just go on and on and on down the list for all the good shit that we want. I mean, it's free market down the line, everywhere. Look at what we were just talking about with Singapore. Look at Hong Kong. Look at Macau. Look at these places where they're kind of like China and Asia, but they have extreme free markets. That is the differentiator, Mick. That is the differentiator. I have been to Singapore. I've been to a lot of these places. I've been to over 40 countries. So this is not just like watching documentaries and reading books for me. This is like going there, experiencing things, getting out of my comfort zone. What makes this happen? Like, at the end of the day, I love social engineering. That's what I love the most. And it's so fascinating to see these social engineers who have created these societies. So I think about this stuff a lot. So yeah, those kind of things like, libertarian, whatever, like, cool, man, just cool it with that. I never said that, and I'll just let Alex go now, because isms to me aren't cool.
Things about isms, especially libertarianisms, are sometimes they contain ideas that are useful to people who aren't libertarians. Essentially, one of them would be Curtis Yarvin, for instance. Curtis Yarvin developed a system of metapolitics that he calls patchwork. And what patchwork is he does come from this kind of libertarian background, but what he wants to do is he wants every locality he wants to turn the political playground into a market. He wants to basically, what he wants to do with the United States is he wants to reduce the power of the federal government, fire all federal employees, and sort of reduce power not to the states. He wants to make even smaller states that he calls like patchworks. He calls the model 1,000 little Liechtensteins. And Liechtenstein is it's kind of like Singapore, Hong Kong, Macau for Europeans. It's this tiny country that does really fucking well for itself, but it's basically just a single city. What he wants to do is he wants to have every locality run itself and have a lot of the power redirected to the municipal level. And each of these little patchworks will become a publicly traded corporation of the United States of America, where the shareholders vote for their leaders, and what they can do is they can implement any kind of system they want, because that's how corporations run. They have their own fucking business model, and this is essentially, this is good for not just libertarians, but everywhere across the political spectrum. For instance, the Vermont patchworks are probably going to want to run some version of like hippie primitivist like socialism or whatever, and they could run that. Like it's basically the ideology that lets everybody determine their own ideology rather than just having like the cigar people force their fucking ideology on everybody else. So it's like ideas you consider libertarian are not necessarily exclusive to libertarians, and in fact that might be the only way to win. Because like going back to that Peter Thiel quote, like freedom and democracy are no longer compatible. Peter Thiel is good friends with like Curtis Yarvin, and he like that quote was inspired by him reading the Formalist Manifesto, which is what Curtis wrote. And essentially what he says is that like this patchwork model is like the only way to move forward, and it's not just libertarianism. Other people want to like go their own way too, because America is a very diverse place, and it'd be better if all these localities just govern themselves. But we retained, like, say, he still wants to retain, like, the military apparatus of the state. Otherwise, we'd get fucking invaded. But at the legislative level, decentralize it and, like, run the localities like basically a stock market. You bring the free market competition into the realm of culture and politics. And the best model is replicated by the other models. And essentially, you get this kind of convergent progress. And the reason he calls it patchwork is because, Rowan, pull up a map, 1800s Germany. So 1800s Germany, if you look at this map that Rowan's about to pull up on Google Images, basically this picture of Germany, you just see Germany with like 1,000 little countries, and that's what Germany was. And that was like the industrial capital of Europe, just because all these little tiny countries were competing with each other to see who could provide the best model. And eventually it was Prussia that provided the best model. It went out and it like sort of subsumed all the others just because it had the most like efficient model for industrialization. And essentially that's what Curtis Yarvin wants to do. It's not exclusively libertarian. Like, just go to Justin Murphy. Justin Murphy's a socialist, and he interviews Curtis on his channel, and he talks about like how that could be useful for like communists and anarchists and fascists and whatever the fuck you are to just have the power to run your own locality and see where that takes you. And if it doesn't take you anywhere nice, then you're responsible for your own misery, and you can't just blame the federal government. But if you succeed, then you reap the benefits of your own success. So be careful of the ism. That's all I want to say.
I'm just
curious. I just want to say one more final thing on this, Rowan, and this will be really succinct, and then you can go. It'll be really succinct. It's essentially like this was no. I didn't mean to pass judgment directly to whoever asked the question about the libertarianism, but I don't really consider myself tied to any type of real ideology like that. Like, you want to talk about things, I'm me. I'm Bryant. I have a YouTube channel. We can talk about stuff, but I'm also not a conservative. I'm not a Christian. I'm not Jewish. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a socialist. I'm not any of these things. I'm Bryant, and I've read history and a lot of economics, and I care about like things that are real and reality, and I want to actually focus on what works. Meritocracies are the best, actually. If you look at how they work, the highest intelligence and most competent people rise to the top very quickly. Governments are not meritocracies. They're just not. They are bureaucratic. Right. It's a different game. It's a status signal game compared to, which, as we know, is a zero-sum game. Whereas wealth creation is what I'm into. That's free market capitalism. Wealth creation is not a zero-sum game. It's a positive-sum game. These are not controversial or subjective things I'm stating. These are objective things. So that's why I focus on entrepreneurial ventures and free market and cut out the noise of all the other nonsense that people are focused on, right? This is why the Jeff Bezos of the world, the Elon Musk of the world, this is why they're not running for president. They know that they can have a better impact running their companies in the free market, and that they have massive control that they've created. Like, don't forget, like, no, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos were not like born into this. I mean, if you looked at both their stories, unless they're completely conspiracies, which I don't believe that they are, they're pretty incredible people from backgrounds where you wouldn't expect they'd end up where they are. So those are the kind of things I try to focus on: creating, building. I believe that we're creators, and I don't want to be a parasite, and I don't want to be a taker. And I just don't like that mentality, and I don't like that mentality getting spread across to people. For the people who have misfortune, sure, we can help them out, but we also have to realize that, like, we're in the most decadent time ever in human history by far, and it's getting like bad to the point of have mental illnesses, wearing masks all the time for this COVID thing. However, not wearing it for like the flu or for other things. Like, let's not just think that there's just one thing COVID that's like going to hurt us. There's tons of things out there. Reality is a scary place, but there's something called risk and reward. And if you over sterilize everything, you're going to kill all the good viruses too. Because like, yeah, there are good viruses. Like, does anybody ever talk about this in the media?
Most bacteria in your body are good.
Right.
Bacteria.
Most of it is good stuff. So I don't know. It's just exhausting to kind of like explain this to people and not have them understand the pieces of the puzzle of how we've just been led down a road of tyranny and nonsense the last few months.
Yeah.
And I've had to just like stay quiet about it. And it's really affecting my life in a dramatic way. Like and mine, not even as much as most people. It's affecting all of us more than I think we realize.
100%.
Joe Bennett responds, all I'm saying is that promoting big government skepticism is counterproductive. Because
no, it's not. Are you kidding me? Big government skepticism is the most productive thing we can be doing. The big government's out of control.
He says,
"Sorry, I cut you off."
We're going to need a Brave New World government if we hope to achieve indefinite lifespan in our lifetime. Has he read Brave New World?
Have you read Brave New World?
The Brave New World is not like a model being held up by Aldous for success. It's like what he's trying to critique. Like Aldous, he is a futurist, but he wants to critique the dystopian futurism where the government decides your whole life. So he's essentially like
This guy's clearly clowning us, right? He's just messing with us.
Joe Bennett, are you a troll? We'll see.
Wow.
His next comment says, hoping that the free market will accomplish life extension over the next 70 years is a gamble that I don't want to take.
Guys, government does not create anything, right? It's not how it works, okay? It's literally just... I have to lower my voice. My wife's birthday, and she's told me I was being too loud already. I'm getting upset. This is frustrating, all right? We're all past 3rd grade now, okay? Government doesn't create anything. That's not how it works, okay? They're going to have to steal something from you to create something. So imagine you are walking down the street and you're doing just fine. A thug comes up and hits you over the leg with a, stick or something, or breaks your leg with his arms, whatever. Then they come up and that same person gives you a wheelchair and they say, "See, I'm the government. Aren't I so great that I'm giving you this wheelchair when your leg's broken?" It's like, but you broke my freaking leg, man. Like, what are you talking about? You're an insane person. That's what the government basically is. They have to steal. They have to take the money in some way. It's called taxes, right? Another way they do it is called inflation. Most people don't know about this. It's a hidden tax. I mean, everybody knows about it, but most people don't know about it, like how powerful it is. Since the Federal Reserve came into existence in 1913 in the U.S., and if you don't know what the Federal Reserve is, then you're in big trouble, because just pull out some money. If you have any left, it says Federal Reserve note on it. That's who creates your money in the U.S. and pretty much is the reserve currency for the whole world. Not pretty much, it is. Created literally 107 years ago. 98% of the money they've created lost value, That $1 from 1913 has the purchasing power of 2 cents. That's why everything's so expensive.
Hang on. I'm just going to create a very charitable interpretation of Joe Bennett's argument.
Okay.
I think we're like, let me try and figure out what he's trying to say.
Yeah, he doesn't have a voice.
Joe Bennett says, yes. Okay, so he says, "Sorry. I don't mean to pin you to any particular ideology. I used Brave New World as a joke, but we're still going to need a strong centralized government to move the ball forward at a pace that will happen within our lifetime." Okay, I understand what he's saying. So I think Joe Bennett... so Marx, like not the Communist Manifesto, but Capital, like his bigger book that he wrote like 30 years later. What he says in that book is that humanity should produce for use rather than exchange. But the thing is, you have no way to sort of enforce production for use rather than production for exchange. So what you sort of have to do is you have to bring the level down to you sort of have to bring it into manageable chunks. You have to alienation is I think one of the things Marx gets right is alienation, because that's what causes people to produce for exchange rather than for use. And I think what he's trying to say is that the government will force everybody to produce for life extension rather than produce meaningless shit. But that's not how it works, because you can produce meaningless shit and like come up with some bullshit excuse for how it's for life extension. Essentially, like regulating the shit out of it isn't going to fix it. What you have to do is you have to reconnect people to their localities. You have to reconnect them to the community. And this solves the problem of alienation that Marx was trying to articulate into that book. You have to sort of reconnect people to their roots, and then they'll come together, and through their own free will, they will decide to only take up jobs or produce jobs that produce for use rather than for exchange. So I think that's what he's trying to get at. He thinks like he wants a bigger force to direct humanity in the direction of life extension, because most people don't want life extension. But essentially, that's not the approach I want to take. I'd rather educate people to want life extension, and then have life extension emerge organically rather than try to force it on them. It's
That's
better to
what I'm trying to do too.
Yeah, it's better
That's
to
what we're all trying to do.
Yeah, we want to romanticize transhumanism, so that's like this big, like a cool new thing that all the young people want to do, rather than like treat it like some boomer thing. Like, I'm going to force this on all of you, and if you don't, fuck you. But like imagine all the Christian people. There's the American, like, I know America is not like there are atheists in America, but like 70% of the people are still Christian, and a lot of them believe this like mark of the beast bullshit that like extending your lifespan is somehow like a defiance of the Bible, even though the Bible doesn't like say anything about it per se.
It talked about people living like 1,000 years.
And what do you think? Yeah, who do you think has all these like fucking guns? Like, you think they're not going to like rise up and overthrow whatever government is trying to force them to fucking produce for life extension? You have to get them to want life extension. This is like, okay, think of it like this: in yoga. Do you do yoga, Joe Bennett? Do you do yoga in your yoga studio? Your yoga teacher talks about a principle called ahimsa, and that says like, do not use force to get what you want. Like, it's like, don't if you want to like go out with a pretty girl, you don't rape the pretty girl. You can actually convince the pretty girl to want you by showing off like how awesome it is, how awesome you are. You have to show off how awesome life extension is. You have to show off the potential of living an infinite life to these people who don't understand it. And if they don't understand it, if they don't want to understand it, that's why I'm proposing the patchwork, is that at least you can create localities for people who do want it. And then they don't have to have the central government like tell them how to live their lives. They can focus on what they actually want. So decentralization is always better than centralization for people getting what they actually want. It's power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. You don't want absolute power, even if it's for supposedly a good cause like life extension. Like Stalin, like he was under the facade of trying to create this communist utopia, but really he was just benefiting himself and his cronies. So you can say it's for life extension and not actually do life extension. There's no guarantee that creating
or that they'll do it good, even if they have the best intentions.
Yeah,
like,
you have
these clowns running the government.
Exactly. You have no guarantee that this Brave New World government, quote unquote Brave New World government, will actually take us in the direction of life extension. They could just be corrupt people who don't even give a shit about life extension, and they only create
could be, or you think it's even more likely than could? I mean, look at these people in government, man.
Like if I was a modern Stalin trying to like subvert this life extension government, I'd be like, okay, we're gonna have all the factories just produce as many fucking band-aids as possible. Therefore, I have justified my position as dictator by printing fucking band-aids, and then I'm gonna direct the society in the way that I want it to, and still justify my position by saying I'm printing band-aids and that must extend lifespan. You have no guarantee that this government will actually pursue lifespan extension or do so efficiently. People do so efficiently. People who actually give a shit. So if you really want this to happen, you have to get a population that wants it to happen. You can't force it on the population.
Yeah, I'm just really disappointed with the lack of critical thinking of most people. I thought most people were better than that, but our school system's completely.
He sounds like a young guy, because I used to say shit like this when I was 14 too. So.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not even just. I'm not singling out this one person. Did you say it was Joe Bennett who's been asking these questions?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm not singling him out. I'm talking about people in general. Yeah. Like, I just can't believe people are this gullible, man. Like, okay, COVID-19 looks like it's a real problem. There's lots of real problems out there, guys. There's a lot worse than this, right? I mean, we have seatbelts for cars. That's cool. Still, 3,800 people die every single day. Every single day from car accidents. And those are just deaths. Remember, there's people who survive those who might be quadriplegic, whatever.
Just watch the movie. Watch the movie Meet
life,
Joe
right?
Black, and you'll see how bad car accidents can be.
It doesn't. But you won't. If people said, all right, so because there's so many people dying from driving, what we're gonna do is we're going to stop driving for like 2 months everywhere on the planet. And then what we'll do is we'll slowly start driving again, starting off 25-mile-an-hour speed limits, even on the highway. Then we'll raise it to 30, 35. If what I'm saying sounds crazy, it's actually not, based off the logic of how things have played out with this new COVID-19 thing, which, keep in mind, by the government statistics globally and all the best statistics, is killing less people than car accidents. Okay? And you can even say car accidents are actually even creating global warming and pollution, which is even more incentive to stop it, right? And the government can control that if they want to, just like they're controlling us with COVID-19. But, Brent, when you start talking about logic and reason with people, you lose them, because most people are emotional and they can't get past like, well, I don't like this Brent guy. I've already made up my mind. Man, you're talking about that I could be wrong about COVID-19. Then I'd have to admit being wrong about something, and I don't want to do that because I've already made up my mind. I pick what team I'm on. See, what I was trying to explain to Joe Bennett or whatever is stop choosing teams of ideas. Like, I'm on this guy's team, on that team. Focus on the team of reality and science and constantly.
I totally want to back that up, because do you guys remember the new atheism movement? How these people had nothing in common except that they were atheists and they thought that was kind of like a group identity? No, like, it's a shared goal. Like, that's what you were trying to do. You're not trying to create a shared national identity or like a shared like class identity or whatever to do this. You're just people who come from very different backgrounds with very different religions, and we decided this is the most, like, investing our time to get more time through life extension is the best thing we could possibly do. So we're gonna collaborate for this one thing, and you don't need like this like a fucking institution of propaganda. You don't need an institution of like enforcing like fucking enforcing like your values. You don't need any of this shit. All you need to do is allow like the freedom of association, and the people who want life extension will associate with other. Response here says you can't convince most people with words. Governments are only corrupt when politicians don't have strong convictions. Wow, like read Machiavelli. Holy shit. If we had genuine transhumanists in power, they would be incorruptible. Oh boy, dude, let's put Bobby in power as dictator. Bobby is a transhumanist, a genuine transhumanist. Let's put him in power and make him dictator of fucking North America. Hell no! Holy shit. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm being rude. Okay, what I think you're trying to say, but Joe Bennett, what I think you're trying to say is that we have done big government in the past, but we have not done it with the proper values in place. Perhaps most of the values have been the pursuit of money.
But Alex, why is that though, right? It's because there's a certain type of person who tends to want to get into government and rise to the top. It's a certain particular type of personality that I have researched thoroughly over many years, and I'm sure, Alex, you have as well too. Rowan, you might have. It's these type of personalities, man. These psychopathic, parasitical type people. They want to produce nothing, and they want to take everything. And they're masters at that. If you give them enough time and even decades to do it, watch out, man. I like people who produce shit, and who are making the world better objectively. But sorry,
okay, Alex, let's give him a like. I'm gonna try and charitably interpret this. So the first, you can't convince most people with words. I'm actually gonna agree with him. I have no I am not delusional about the fact that I can convince 7 billion people on this earth that life extension should be their most important value. All I will give is that the pursuit of time is the most valuable investment of your time, because you get more time back that you can then again invest. But I don't think I'm going to be able to convince 7 billion people to do that. So what's the next best thing? I have two options now. I'm going to create a dictatorship in one country and then go overthrow all the other fucking countries with my military and get them to adopt my values. So I'm going to do this for 7 billion people, and I'm going to have to start a war to overthrow every other fucking country until everybody on the planet agrees with me, and I can't lose a single fucking battle, and damn well hope that the rest of them don't unite against me. So that's option one. Or option two, which is actually the easier route, is you just allow life extensionists to associate with other life extensionists. You decentralize your government and into localities and let people vote with their feet. And what's going to happen, all the people who support life extension are going to go where all the life extension. I know, crazy, right? Like that's basically what I did. I didn't stay in Canada because like the kinds of things that were available there weren't interesting to me. Are we too loud? Is your oh shit? What's it? Hang on.
We good?
We good? What was that noise? Okay. Yeah. Anyway,
Was that somebody at your place, Alex, or were you talking about what Rowan said?
Yeah, I think that might have been coming from Rowan. Yeah, the point I'm getting at is that there's two paths here. The path is you can either convince people with words and fail, but ally with the people you can convince, or you can just try and force your values onto everybody, which is kind of like what I believed at 14 or 13. And then you find out why that doesn't work, because people grew up in very different places under very different cultures, had very different traumatic childhoods or adulthoods, had a very different life story that caused them to develop different values. So all you can do is be able to convince everybody else is for the people you did convince should at least be allowed to aggregate with them and then produce the thing you want to produce. So I would rather have the geopolitical layout we have today, where Singapore is allowed life extension technology, than have a kind of one world government where nobody is allowed to do that. Like, I'm glad we have countries we can go to collaborate with other people who share our values. I think that's interesting.
And Alex,
go ahead.
So I want to just say one quick thing here, right? I don't want people to think I'm being hypocritical when I go out and try to raise money, for life extension projects or research, or influence governments to grant, grants for research for academics that I'm interviewing and we're interviewing and profiling. I'm not being hypocritical when I'm doing that here. If you think I am, then you're not understanding what I'm saying, or I'll just explain further, right? How I can be morally even here with what I've stated already. I'm not advocating for more government. I'm just saying, hey, if the government's going to be spending a certain amount of dollars that they've already allocated for certain scientific health purposes, then let's actually put it into something that will have, better results over the long term and bear bigger fruits, and it will actually be chopping at the roots of the cause of the problem, which is aging, right? Instead of investing so much research into cancer that we've been doing for decades and be like, oh, we can't kill this cancer. Yeah, because you're trying to destroy it when it's at stage 1, 2, 3, or 4, which is like the end stage of it. You need to do things that are going to promote a healthy lifestyle and even slow, stop, and maybe even reverse aging that will help prevent, naturally, cancer, type 2 diabetes, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, blah, 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 all the diseases of aging and those type of things, heart disease, blah, 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 blah. So it shouldn't be that complex. I think most people watching this will understand that. If not, then I'm talking to you specifically. Like, if this is the first time you're hearing this and this is crazy talk, then watch more of our content, because this is not crazy talk. This is well-established science for many decades. And it's just that people are not being taught this. It's not being spread well enough throughout academics and government. And this COVID-19 is a huge wake-up for me that, we're just being manipulated, People don't know how the corporate media actually works. They're not trying to tell you the truth. They're trying to tell you what's going to sell ads, man. This is simple. This is not controversial, not a tinfoil hat. This is how it works. I have a corporate communications degree. I studied mainstream media in college. They bred me to be one of these clowns. And I'm like, no, this is not moral. This is ridiculous. My wife went to journalism school. All this stuff makes perfect sense to her. So in any event, it's just frustrating. And I feel like I've added up too many pieces of this puzzle to see. I read this stuff in January with COVID-19, and I was like, oh, this is killing old people. I'm already talking about what's killing the most old people. It's aging. Nobody's scared about that. The irony of this is ridiculous, right? When that's what
on top of all that, they're putting them they're isolating them with other COVID-19 patients so that they get killed quicker. It's
right.
Just the most inefficient way to handle this.
First time we've ever quarantined healthy people in a society like this ever throughout all of history that I've ever read or heard of. I've never seen anything like this. There's definitely never been anything like this on this scale. You don't quarantine the healthy, man. You quarantine the sick. You don't just have a healthy immune system to fight off viruses. You create a healthy immune system every single day. One thing you hear me say over and over and again is that we are creators, I don't even like talking about this version of God where he's like, oh, I have no control. No, man. If there's any, we are the closest thing. We are the ones that probably created this idea of God, our hive mind brains and our societies and our stories. So if anything, it's like us, and we're doing it more with our technology, becoming more God-like with all these technologies that we're creating. And these biotechnologies might be able to get us to live a lot longer. That sounds pretty God-like to me too. So my whole point is that if there's anything that looks godlike, it's human intelligence, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's what I value, and that's what I want people to think about. I'm not like forget about the narcissist, like this guy's a blah. Like, no, just like think about what I'm saying and think about if it makes sense to like actual language and reality and how things play out. And if you just think about it like that and don't have too much judgment otherwise, then you're like, this kind of makes sense. And so I just don't like taking away so much of our autonomy and so many things that we had for freedom to make us better so fast. And I don't think the results of this are going to be good. Just even going out in society and be like, everybody stand 6 feet away. Like I'm walking in to just have a nice meal with my wife at a restaurant. And I feel like I'm at like Chuck E. Cheese or something. Like there's like stickers everywhere. 6 feet, everybody. I'm like, am I in a bad movie?
Did you get Karen? Did you get a Karen telling you to put on your mask? I've gotten Karen.
Well, no, they didn't know about. None of the customers were wearing masks because I'm at a restaurant, dude. I'm sitting down to eat. Like it's ridiculous to even make me wear a mask. I'm about to shove food in here. Like, come on, guys. Like, can everybody just chill out at some point? There's risk to life, right? There's risk to life. If you want to stay home and never leave your house, that's cool. Like I do that kind of anyways because I'm building businesses and stuff here with you guys. But it's not like what I choose. I'm choosing this actually, which is kind of ironic after this whole speech here. But it's because I'm working my ass off, right? It shouldn't be forced upon anybody. I mean, there's, prisons are for people to be forced into a specific place in that way. But I'm rambling a little bit. I'm just being honest. It was weird taking my wife out to a nice restaurant, trying to have a nice lunch on her. And we did. We had a good time. It was delicious. I'm not complaining too much. I'm just being honest. It was weird. Stickers on, like, how long are these stickers going to be here on the ground that say 6 feet apart, everybody? Like in a nice restaurant? It doesn't. And we're sitting there at booths, and every other booth is separated, and it says imaginary friend sitting here. Okay, this is weird. This is clearly not how this building was built. It wasn't built for this. Our whole society. So basically what the elite are telling us now is that, hey, sorry, your whole society, your bathrooms, your restaurants, your every single thing inside, sports stadiums, none of these are built right. Let's just tear it all down and start again, and everything will be 6 feet apart from now on. Like, and that's why I read what I read earlier on my phone. It's like the virus, this is the truth. The virus travels 6 feet, not 6 feet and 1 inch. Don't be unscientific. I said 6 feet, right? This is the narrative that's being pushed to us, right? And it's not science, man. The virus travels 6 feet. The virus is on surfaces. It's not on surfaces. It's this and that. It's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, calm down. Build a healthy immune system. If you build a healthy immune system, you don't have to worry about viruses. You can get them like other people, but you build antibodies and you fight it off and you live again. We don't want to create a society where the weakest people are the ones that are controlling everything and controlling all of our decisions. And not just like the weakest, like 40% of people or something, like a small percentage of people. COVID-19 has killed people with very short life expectancies, extremely short life expectancies, people with comorbidities, right? It's sad, but, it's not a good way to build a society, not in a free market. Do we go around like I talked about a meritocracy earlier, right? I've worked at Microsoft, I've worked at LinkedIn, I've worked at HP, I've worked at lynda.com, I've worked at Video, I've worked at a startup called 3PAR, been acquired 3 times. I've been in different corporate environments in my career. And none of these corporate environments do you ever take the weakest, most vulnerable population and then create the whole system around them and be like, let's change everything for them.
Like, yeah, Japan and Sweden did perfectly fine by all. They said only the sick stay home, and you know what Japan's casualties?
Yeah, that's how cool.
800 people died in Japan. That's it. Holy shit,
dude! What did they teach you when you were a child? If you feel sick and you have the flu, stay home. Don't come into school. You're gonna infect everybody. You dummy, right? This was simple. They taught us this to children. Okay, any job I've worked at. Same fucking thing. How come for this thing, everybody done lost their damn minds And they're like, oh, you can't think for yourself. Everybody needs to stay home in quarantine. Oh, you don't know how deadly this is. Here's it's always like, you're not scientific. That's how it always is.
Yeah, let's address this. Let's address this. You're not scientific thing. Like, what was the original purpose of science? There's a lot of different positions you could take for this. You could have of course, there's the classic like theocracy, like oh fuck science, like it should be the clergy in charge, which I obviously oppose. But then you got scientific realism, and then scientific instrumentalism. So scientific realism, I think, is this kind of like Reddit mentality. Like it comes from the early 2000s. You remember the like George Bush and like the whole No Child Left Behind.
No child left behind.
Yeah.
George Carlin. No child left behind.
So we were starting to worry that all these other countries like Japan, which was like really big in the 80s, and like Japan and China, and like all their kids are smarter, but we misread. The data misread what those countries were actually like, because we were measuring only in the urban cities, in the rich areas, how smart the kids were and how well they were doing. So there was this immense pressure on Americans to sort of instill like science and math in their children. So we started fetishizing science. We developed this like Neil deGrasse Tyson shit posting on Twitter about how Guardians of the Galaxy would never happen in real life. No shit, Sherlock, it would never happen in real life. It's a fucking fiction movie.
Right.
But
it's ridiculous.
We fetishized it. We fetishized it so much that I actually have an aversion, like a bigger aversion to like atheists than I do to like these like religious people who are just like I don't think that they're ignorant. I think it's just because of the culture they grew up in that they're like that. I have a huge aversion to like worshiping science as like an entity that's supposed to dispense metaphysical truth, because metaphysical truth is not exactly possible. The words I'm using, do they really represent reality? Does the word tiger represent reality? Because when I say the word tiger, what am I thinking about when I say the word tiger? What is Brent thinking about when he says the word tiger? What's Rowan thinking about when he says the word tiger? We're all thinking of different things. And there's never 100% certainty between what the word represents and what reality is. That's why I oppose scientific realism, because words are defined in relation to each other, not to the things they represent. So instead I embrace scientific instrumentalism, which says the original purpose of science should be what its purpose always was to extend our fucking lifespans and make life less shitty. So if it works, do it. It's just pragmatism. Like that's this idea came out of America, actually. It's just like, quit it with all the metaphysical speculation about what truth is and just do what works. Because it's like, nothing like this has ever happened before. But yet there's people saying that we can deduce the metaphysical truths of reality by just replacing the church with science. It doesn't work like that. Also, science is not like, it doesn't come from the state. Science comes from, we are science. It's a method we use. The people who are doing science, that's science. It's not an institution. The university system is one of the most corrupt places I can conceive of, and it's just what Brent said was like a social game. It's a status game. It's a popularity contest between academics and how well they can suck up to their postdocs who are paying them fucking or how well the postdocs can suck up to the tenures who are paying them slave wages.
Real quick, Alex, my quotes. I'm the quote guy, right? I love the quote. Since you brought it,
do the quote.
Since you teed it up, and I'll just close it out with this, with the science and the academics, right? There's a famous quote, which is that scientific advancements are measured in tombstones. If you think about what that means, right? What happens when you get tenure? Well, that means you're just like, you don't have to do anything anymore, and you just get paid. Like, what? That makes no sense.
You don't care about what you're doing.
Right? Pensions, all this stuff, like, this stuff was created when it was like, all right, if you work to 65, we'll pay you till you're going to be dead at 67 for a couple years. Now, so we'll see Grandpa on his way out. Now we're living like another 30 years since these ideas came in, right?
Yeah.
Because of all this
life. Problem with Social Security and whatnot.
Social Security, saying all these social problems, anything Social Security, social everything, Medicare, Medicaid, blah, 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 all of it. The point is that when these ideas were actually conceived of and they are actually passed and became part of our society, it's a very different world back then, very different. And they lived a few more years on these policies. They were never thought you were supposed to just live for the last 30 years of your life on the government teat. That was not why these policies came into place. They just weren't. These are, again, if you're getting triggered at all listening to this, you're like, Brent's not saying what I believe. Like, these are facts that I'm stating. You can go back and you can read when these policies were implemented and what was going on, the zeitgeist at the time, okay? And you can verify this, okay? So now what's happening is it's just like out of control. And everybody has kind of lost their minds thinking about how things are actually created, who creates them, how incentives work. And The pricing mechanism of money is screwed up too because of the money printing and everything. Nobody knows what anything's worth anymore. We have negative interest rates. Like Warren Buffett is baffled. The Oracle of Omaha is baffled. I watched an interview with him a couple months ago, and they said, why do you keep doing it, Warren? Like, he's like, it's the game. He literally considers finance and all this investing his $87 billion, whatever. It's the game. And here's Warren Buffett's little snowball book over there behind me. And I've researched so much about this guy, and you're like, what surprises you now more than anything? He's like, negative interest rates is what he says. Negative interest rates. And it surprises him, but it doesn't scare him. So don't be scared of him. But as Alex told us in a message recently, the government, or now because of the government, you might see banks start taking money out of your bank account. Oh, now that we moved everything to digital money, okay, think about this, please. Just think about what I'm saying, guys. Forget about conspiracy or Brent's this, he's right, he's left. Just think, right? I've been researching this stuff for like a long time. I was a banker in 2007, 8. I've watched more documentaries about these conspiracy theories stuff than most people can imagine about how money works, central banking, fiat systems, all these type of things. This has been planned out for many decades. And here's the next step. So I'll go ahead and tell it to you. Once the 8% of money that's left in fiat right now that's actually cash gets phased out and it's all digital, which they basically just did hyper fast now. Because there's viruses on money. You don't want to touch money. Ooh, you could get sick. Cash is out. Make it all digital. Once it's all digital, then where's your money? It's all in the bank. There's no more cash. It's all digital. Oh, we're just going to start taking your money now. Negative interest rates. Instead, for all of history, and when I say all of history, I mean all of financial fucking history. I've researched this shit. 80,000 years going back to caveman drawing ledgers on fucking stones, okay? Our first language is money. Money is our language, okay, guys? People ask me, how many languages do you speak? I speak English and I speak money, the two most important languages, okay? I've researched this shit. I'm not fucking around either, okay? This is getting really scary. They've already had this shit in Europe for about 8 years now. Negative interest rates. Now, the bank will just start taking money from you. Why? Because these banks are getting, these commercial banks like Chase, in America, Citibank, Bank of America, they're getting the money taken from them from the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank, central banks run the planet. And they've just done another masterful job of just taking more rights and freedoms from people and more money and power for themselves. It's a small group of people on the planet. And I don't get into all this Illuminati. You see people on Illuminati and the Freemasons. Forget that nonsense, man. I've researched that stuff. It's a bunch of nonsense. But there are people on those are deflections. Don't get caught in that game. They're libertarian. They're just people, man. They're people who want more money and power for themselves, and they're doing a pretty good job at it. They come in and out of power. Some of them are more centralized at the top. The true puppeteers, the puppet masters, sure thing. I get it. But it's the ideas. Don't get caught up on individual people too much. We need to change these ideas. We need to get people to start thinking more about taking control of their own lives and stop inflating all of our wealth away with this nonsense. What's going to be next? If they can scare people this much about a big nothing burger, COVID-19, what has it killed? 30,000 people in 6 months? Dude, that's 3 days of aging. And it's killed people who are highly aged. It's a joke, right? To us life extensionists, we know it's like a bad magic trick. You're like,
it's the manipulation of reality, the manipulation of statistics, and I have not realized how much power the media has until now. If they have a political goal in mind, they can literally will a pandemic into existence.
They're good. So then the last quote I'll say is, we'll end it with this for me, Mark Twain, right? There's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics, okay? Part of my degree in corporate communications was taking political science classes, taking statistics courses, right? And my professors did not like me because I asked the tough questions. I learned to shut up because these are more subjective courses where you write papers to get grades. So it's not like math plus minus. I had the intelligence to know the difference and how to change my behavior when I'm communicating with the professor when they have actual subjective, real power over me to lower my grade. But I could tell when I'd asked a smart question, I'm like, how do you know this study works like this? There are people running this, and their incentive was clearly for this. That's not how science works, right? And if a professor pushed back like, well, you don't know about blah, then I'd be like, all right, this dude's part of the scam. I get it now. He can't be this dumb because he's a professor. He's teaching a scam here. So I'll be quiet and I'll play the game to get a good grade. But you have to realize that this is social pressure that starts even at the academic level when they're indoctrinating you with how the system actually works, using economics, using political science, using statistics. But the more you think about things critically, you realize that a lot of these things that we believe as science is not necessarily science. It's been pushed by big agendas. And who keeps pushing that? Big government and big academics. And then if they tie in with big corporations, that's fascism. And that's very dangerous. And we have a corporate fascistic type of environment now to a certain extent. It's a weird like corporatocracy that we're living in now in these times, which is fascinating. And we lost Alex.
We did.
I lost.
Oh, is my camera not working?
Oh, you're there.
Hang on.
Your camera stopped working. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I lost your video maybe a minute
You
ago
see
or
me?
so, Alex. No, it's back
now.
Okay, I should check it to make sure it doesn't cut out.
No worries, but that was kind of a long rant for me, but that's kind of how I see things. And again, I hope the language I've used is like explaining like, hey, this is based off experience. This isn't exciting, the stuff that I'm talking about. This is just the way that I see the world based off like research that I've done. And
Did you say it's not
I try to
exciting
be
what you're
objective.
talking about?
No, it's not exciting at all.
I find it exciting.
I don't like that the world is way more screwed up in many ways that most people don't understand. I'm an optimist.
It's exciting
I
bad,
talk
but
about
you can still be excited and there be something. It's still bad, but you could be excited about bad news too.
I'm excited about making it better and working with people who understand what the real problems are and want to improve on them by working their ass off and spreading the word. That's what I feel like I'm assembling a team with you guys. You know, you guys are awesome. And I love being on a team with you guys. And I love how we're decentralized and we're doing things, you know, how we think is best because we care about it, kind of like how Alex was talking about earlier. And I hope we create a strong movement, like not just us. I don't want to be that egotistical. I mean, like everybody, this life extension, people who just want to value life and health span more. What's so controversial about that? Are you a person? Oh, you are. Would you like to live a healthier life? Like, that's all that we're selling. That's all we're talking about.
Even simpler. Do you like time? Do you like having time? Would you like more time? Did you know you can get more time by investing your time? You can get infinite time if you just invest your time multiple times.
How about like just say
It's
like,
a-
would you prefer your parents to live longer? You know, like
To some people, that might not be the best way to. I mean, I personally love my parents and my in-laws. I'm just saying, though, to some people, there's some messed up.
They don't like their parents.
There's people who have some messed up childhoods,
Yeah.
right? It's
sure.
it's an unfortunate truth. But yeah, in most cases, Rowan, that'd be a good sales pitch. But I don't know. I try to stay positive because I've gone down the rabbit hole pretty deep. I'd say deeper than most people. But I did that stuff like a long time ago. I mean, the last 6 years of my life or so, I've focused more on building rather than like going down deep rabbit holes about how screwed up the world is. Because I get it. I'm trying to make it better. I'm trying to focus on what I think can do that. And I think cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin Cash can do that, but the truth is most people don't really know about them and they're not investing in them. They have the power. It's already set up. We can create a decentralized financial world where the government and big banks, corporations aren't tracking everything you're doing. You can't have fraud committed on you if you use cryptographically protected currencies like Bitcoin Cash and you know how to secure your private seed, which is the password to your money. Simple, right? And nobody can ever like trace it, essentially. I mean, you can trace things on the blockchain, but they can't be traced back to your identity if you set up your wallet properly, right? So it's true freedom. It's cash, right? That's why it's called Bitcoin Cash, right? A lot of people don't know what cash is. The word cash has certain characteristics to it, and there's reasons why we all love cash. Number one, and most important, it is fungible. Fungibility is the most important thing. If you don't like big words, it's basically synonymous with privacy. I hate to break it to you, but privacy is a very important part for all of societies to succeed, and not just succeed, but thrive. For all of history, I just tell you, I've read a lot of history. Privacy is a big, important part. And we're all losing privacy like crazily. but some people have privacy. They're more the people at the top, and they're in government and stuff like that. And
there are blockchain social networks now. It's just that no one's using them because no one knows about them.
Exactly.
We can get our privacy back if we want to. We can repeal the Patriot Act if we want to. People just don't give a shit. That's unfortunate.
It's the catch-22 of this whole thing. Alex is exactly correct. It's and that kind of what's funny is these are like the cryptocurrency cyberpunk movement, whatever, like life extensionists, all the like the groups that I'm kind of in. It's kind of funny because we all like kind of know too much too quickly, and like we've realized there's all these big problems, and now we have to build like tools, solutions to these problems, and they're not easy. They're going to take a lot of work and a lot of time, and it's a lifetime of like a battle, but it's something worth fighting for, right? Most people have already given up and they're not living for anything. Most people live boring, uninteresting lives and never will amount to anything. And I just personally don't want to be one of those people. I want to try and create something with you guys that's actually useful and gives a lot of value to people's lives, even if they don't understand it right now, because most people don't. But hopefully they will someday if we build the right tools and solutions for people, which I'm confident that we have a shot at doing that if we work hard.
That was a good
Heck
speech.
yeah.
You guys want to do comments?
Sure. I have a question for Brent. Did you get a mosquito bite on your little vacation?
No mosquito
Good.
bites. No mosquito bites. There were lots of bugs and gnats and stuff. My dog got fleas a little bit. I think I said that earlier, so I had to give her we had to trim her up today. Her fur was way too long. It's 100 degrees here in Folsom.
Oh yeah,
Also,
there's heat wave.
Did you have a mosquito repellent, or did you just stay away from them?
No, there's mosquito eaters, but there's really no mosquitoes up at Clear Lake, so you don't have to worry about that. You guys don't have to bring any of that stuff when you come up.
Awesome. I hate mosquitoes so much. Ugh.
Yeah, they're the worst. They're the absolute worst. So yeah, you guys don't have to worry about that stuff. We brought tons of food up, like for the summer. So we'll have a bunch of like staple condiments and things up there, which are great when you're making burgers to have all the. I'm a condiment guy. I want to have honey Dijon, not that
relish.
Yeah, relish, right? We have a bunch of pickles up there and stuff, so we could make pickle relish. But anyways, yeah, we have good stuff up there. It was a fun weekend. It was just, man, it's a lot being a parent. And Alton's awesome, but he is a handful now. He's like moving around, and you guys saw him. He's a little raptor now. A raptor. I'm like, what happened to my life? I'm like, I don't know, whatever. In any event, but it was cool.
It's probably the quarantine, just like living the same life, having the same routine, being forced to have the same routine over and over. Does a number on your perception of time.
Heck yeah, it does, man. It's this whole event is screwed with, I think, most of us on the planet more than most of us like to admit or have even had the time to reflect on much.
Think about
for a lot of people.
Think of how weird this is. So 4chan started coming up with this clown world thing. That happened about the same time that the Joker came out, I think, right? And then 4chan started calling everything Clown World. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that after they deemed the world Clown World, like a year or two afterwards, we had coronavirus. Like we're literally living in Clown World.
The Joker was just last year, wasn't it? With Joaquin Phoenix?
Yes. Yeah. You're right. So it's only been like a year.
Not even a year.
It's even been a year.
It was in December.
So the same year that 4chan starts calling the world Clown World, then you have the coronavirus.
It was right at actually about the same time. COVID-19 started in November of 2019. So a lot of people are just not educated about this at all, right? There were more people, like I saw a poll or something, and this could have been wrong, but it was like, where do you think COVID-19 came from? And like 30% of the people did not think that it was COVID like 2019. That's how viruses are named, based off the year that they come into effect. And it's like most people did not know that. Or sorry, not most people, but 30% of the people.
How shortly after?
Which is like a huge.
How shortly after the Joker came out that coronavirus started? Like what time after?
I thought they were like the same time. I thought Joker came out like November, but
I had a friend in China who was telling me about it around that same time. It just wasn't mainstream yet.
Wow, look at that. It's like 4chan freaking made this happen. It's like crazy.
So Joe Bennett asks, what death rate would you feel warrants this current hysteria and level of precautions? So an analogy I like to use is the highway. they've heard it a million times before. Imagine doctors going to work on the highway, but everyone's only allowed to drive 10 miles an hour because that's the only speed limit we can guarantee that 0 people will die. So, unfortunately, though, because we have this, the doctors aren't able to get to work on time, and people are going to die, even though you put precautions into measure to stop people from dying.
Right.
And these things add up. Like the people who aren't able to go to the gym and invest in their health, the people who aren't able to go make money for their families, the people who get into fucking like domestic violence issues and shit because they're locked up like rats for months at a time. All these little things build up, and they result in deaths too. So we got to ask ourselves, what is an appropriate speed limit to be driving? And to answer your question, what amount of deaths warrants this? Certainly not the amount of deaths that are happening right now. Like 300,000. That's just 3 days of aging. Shouldn't we be putting this effort to better use? Like,
and let's remember also, Alex, that look at the average age of the person dying from COVID-19, right? These are people who are old. These are people we're trying to save anyways from aging.
Or people who are obese. Yeah, just like obese people who don't want to live.
Right. If you actually look at the statistics, right, 95% of all people that died from COVID-19 are over the age of 30. 99%. And 95% of all the people are over the age of 50. I mean, can I just repeat that again? 95% of all people who've died from COVID-19 globally are over the age of 50. All right? We're already trying to work on aging. It's killing 110,000 people dying every single freaking day. Okay? COVID-19 is just one more way you're going to die from aging. It's going to be fine. If you get COVID-19, you're my son, 6 months old. Even if you're 20 years old, almost certainly you're going to be fine. 99.99%. The media sensationalizes these 0.0001% of people who are 27 years old and die of COVID-19, and they say in these articles, I've read them, several people have died from COVID-19 and they got into their lungs or it infected another kidney. We don't know. It's really scary. You should be really scared. It's like, okay, several out of 7.7 billion people on the planet is actually not very much if several is like 84 people. This is why we talk about statistics. We actually have rules for this. It's called statistically insignificant, irrelevant, superfluous.
Yeah.
It does not matter. It's worse than a rounding error. It's a big nothing burger. And the media knows this is the thing, right? If you think that CNN, when I'm talking about the media, I'm talking about like CNN, MSNBC, I'm talking about real, even Fox News on the other side.
The six big corporation conglomerates, not even corporations, conglomerates that all have the same opinion about everything.
They do not
disagreeing.
Alex is correct, and they do not have what's called plausible deniability. They don't have it. They're smart enough. They know this. They know what they're doing. They're pushing an agenda on purpose for more power for the financial and governmental system that feeds them, and the pharmaceutical industry as well too. Again, these are not just my opinions. This is easily verifiable information if you look into it. I've been researching this stuff for a long time. I'm not a quack. I'm not a crazy person. I'm not saying that every pharmaceutical company is bad and every person at them are bad. I'm not crazy. I'm just saying this is the general sucking sound of the system. This is how it works. I mean, I'm like saying it to you. And it's not hard to figure out either. These things are easily verifiable, right? Just go to Wikipedia and look at the most recent like heads of the FDA. What happens when they're not head of the FDA anymore? They go and become like a C-level at a pharmaceutical company, right? Then they get their big payday. It's back and forth. This is what I talk about with the corporatocracy, fascism, the merging of government and free enterprise. We have definitions for these things. It's political science, right? This is not controversial stuff. However, if these things that I'm saying are like, I've never heard this stuff, I didn't know Brent was like this is crazy, it's like, well, maybe you should branch out and start listening to some other things and stop getting lied to if you're listening to the wrong information, right? Because a lot of people out there just want to lie to you for their own incentives. Our incentives are aligned if we're life extensionists. We want more healthy life. So we figure out how we get that. And you get that by understanding how reality works and then trying to make reality better. Because you never know, if you never know what the problems are, how are you ever going to improve upon those problems? Blind luck? Good fucking luck. It's not a good strategy. You need to figure out what the problem is to figure out a strategy to solve that problem. And the biggest problem right now is, no offense to the person earlier, Joe, whatever, is that we have a lot of work to do to educate the public about how reality actually works. Because from what I've learned, most people have no fucking clue how reality works. Like the important things, the things that actually matter and affect their lives. That's pretty much the only stuff I talk about on my YouTube channel. And it's not just limited to health. It's also about wealth. It's also about freedom, history, economics. You don't understand these things, you'll get scammed like a fool, like most people have here with COVID-19. Who's running off with all the money again? The wealthy, the more people in power, right? Why do they call it interest? It doesn't interest me to give away my money. It interests them. It's a fucking joke, guys. This is how this language works. This is how interest works. You're in the investor class, you collect interest. It interests you. You listen to Jordan Maxwell, our whole global financial system is all set up through language, right? Every single thing, right? They call it money flow, currency. It's a current goes across the sea. This is all international maritime admiralty law. These things have been around for thousands of years, and they've evolved through the Latin language. And if you look at it, it's very interesting to see how these social elite just really are phenomenal at controlling people. They don't really control me very much. I mean, they control me as much as they control everybody, right? I'm just little me, Brent and Allie, here in this house. But I see what they're saying, and I see the games, and I'm just like, you guys don't see this? Like, you guys are in awe at the elephant that disappeared on stage by the magician, but I saw the elephant, like, coming out beforehand and, like, getting placed there to, like, be disappeared, Like, I saw how the trick worked. You guys didn't see this? It's annoying.
Another concept you bring up, Brent, is that I really like is this concept of incentive. It comes up over and over again. And,
It's all about
Joe Beckett, what he was talking about with like the Brave New World government, like people when they're not incentivized, they'll get back at you and they will win. Essentially, let's imagine this Brave New World dictatorship run by he who must not be named. Runs this transhumanist dictatorship. Do you think the people who are spending their waking lives, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, just pouring fucking chemicals down the drain or pipetting life extension drugs, and they don't want to be there, but they're being forced to be there by gunpoint? You don't think they're going to maybe sabotage the life extension drugs because out of butthurt to get back at whoever's doing this to them? You don't think they're going to maybe not put as much effort into it as if they had been doing it if they were being paid to do it? Do you think they would? Do you think they would bother coming up with innovative new ways to extend life expectancy when they never really gave a shit in the first place, and they were just like some rural Christian family that you're like fucking brutes dragged off with like fucking M16s and like dragged them to the fucking life extension factories? You got to get people to want this shit, and if they don't want it, then fine, deassociate from them and associate with others who do agree, and then they'll come join you when they're ready. It's you really can't like force people to do what you want. You have to negotiate with them. We are social beings. Humans are social beings. You don't exist in a vacuum.
Ron, we haven't heard much from you. Maybe you can say something, or you can read from the live notes or something if there's more. I'm not even looking at it, actually.
Oh yeah, sure.
This must be the smartest live stream ever.
So next question comes from Jama Warsame. Do you think that the countries that get AI first will oppress other cultures or force them to renounce their ideas? Oh, that is a good question. So this brings me to a quote by Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin recently said, "The first country to harness AI will become the new leader of the world." There's also Eric Drexler. He calls this idea the leading force. So the first country to sort of develop like AI or nanotechnology or whatever this is it'll be like a power asymmetry compared to like imagine the U.S. Army today going into like some like African village and just like shooting them. They don't have a fucking chance. That's what it'll be like to have AGI. That times 1,000. But here's the thing: this is going to be disastrous because the humans still have cultural differences, and they can apply this AI in a way that serves their interests, which are already irrational. So what's the solution here? I think the solution is, again, decentralization. So what you have is this, you have the assumption built into your question, Jama Warsame, the assumption built into here is that only the state can develop AGI, nobody else. What if we sort of develop it, we sort of develop it like open source, like we have an open source AI. We have we have transparency. We can see what is happening to the AGI that we're editing. People can make contributions. People can review the contributions. We can, everybody can see what is being done. Just make it more open source, make it visible, make it transparent, and make it decentralized, and you'll avoid this whole problem. Because chances are the people who are working on this decentralized AI will come from a variety of different cultures, backgrounds, nations, religions, and once it's developed, they're not going to use them to kill each other or to wipe each other out through genocide. You know? So the assumption built into here is that the AI will be used to genocide other cultures. But if you make AI non-cultural, if you just make it decentralized across the globe between people who want to contribute to it, the AI will have no political bias. It'll be drawing from everywhere, from all walks of life.
I'll say
go ahead.
There. I really agree with what Alex said, and the general theme I want the audience to think about, and we'll talk about this a lot in our live streams, and if you follow us, is the difference between centralization and decentralization and how important these ideas are. And if you saw me looking back there while Alex was talking, I was listening to Alex, but I couldn't find it. It's somewhere back there, and I just didn't want to stare at my books. I have a book called The Starfish and the Spider, which I highly recommend. I have a couple more books over there, and I was seeing if it was there. And it was written in 2007, a year before Bitcoin came out, and it's all about the difference between decentralization versus centralization. It talks about in nature and history, a spider is centralized. You cut off its head, it's dead. Starfish, cut off one of its limbs, and all species of starfish, that limb will grow back that you cut off. In some species of starfish, not only does that limb grow back, but the one that you cut off becomes another starfish. So in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia in the 90s, late 90s, they had a problem with too many starfish. They went in there and they just started cutting them. Thought they were killing them. They just created double the starfish. So you need to know what you're dealing with. If decentralization or centralization is better based off that specific environment and what you're trying to create. And this is where I always talk about incentives are the most important. Well, what are you trying to create? You need to start to think about that. What are we trying to create here? What kind of reality are we trying to create? So we talk about social engineering. Tie it all together. Decentralization and centralization is really the last piece of the puzzle you have to understand. So the book is really good, but there's lots of things in life. They talked about how Amazon is centralized. They're a company, but they have decentralization built into many aspects of their platform. Like, for example, the rating system. Nobody's getting paid to rate on Amazon. People are rating because they feel strong incentive. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, is one of the wealthiest people on the planet because they figured out that you can actually leverage human nature, which is that when people have a really good experience about a product, they just want to tell other people. We're social creatures. That is social engineering of Amazon. It has really allowed them to be successful in that decentralized manner. They haven't had to pay for those ratings, and people trust those ratings too pretty well. You have a really negative experience, like to go in there, 1 star, this, whatever. So the point is that there's aspects of decentralization within centralization as well too. And you think about that in many ways. Alex was talking about open source, really important. So I just want people to think about this. And the final thing I'll say is there's a trend where the world's going. It's not my opinion. It's obvious in the data. Whenever I say it's not my opinion, by the way, this is data-driven, obvious, objective stuff that you can research. You don't have to trust me, right? In Bitcoin, we say, don't trust, verify. Don't trust me, don't trust Alex, don't trust Rowan, don't trust anything we're saying. Go look it up. Watch this again. Pause it. Press Google. Research. Research however long you need. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 4 days, 3 weeks, however long it takes you to figure out that the shit that we're saying is actually true. Then you're making your life better. You're like, holy shit, I just watched 17 different YouTube documentaries about central banking and fiat systems and how this works. Brent, Alex, and Rowan were right. I can't believe it. I was such a socialist idiot. Okay, now I understand. Now I can march forward, right? We're trying to teach how reality works. That's what I care about. And I want to learn, too. I want to learn from everybody. This is how you get smarter, growth mentality. You never know enough. You always learn more. But there's certain things, like, again, I know. Like, I've studied this stuff. There's not opinions, right? So this is the things that we all need to stand on as a baseline. And so looking into decentralization versus decentralization will be a common theme that we'll talk about. And it will become way more clear to you when you think about it. Oh, shit. This is why we don't want centralized governments at the top, right? To have too much power, because they create debt and death. That's all they spread. Debt and death. That's it, right? They don't create anything. They're out for more power. And it's very clear. If you look at like for example, on the planet right now, North Korea is just the worst of that, right? They're the end of extreme socialism. It's absolute worship of the state. If you watch these documentaries, if you've researched North Korea like I have, a lot of people, it's hard for them to understand. Literally, the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and before him, Kim Jong-il, and they're the god of the religion of the North Korean state.
They don't believe that Kim Jong-un shits or pisses like the normal people.
They believe he literally got an 18 in his first round ever playing golf, like a hole-in-one every time. Okay, and they might not actually believe that, but when the government comes in their home and asks them, they have to recite the government rhetoric. Even if they were lucky enough to be logical enough to realize that it's not true, they have to abide by those laws. So even if they're not truly robots, they're robots into that system. It's an incredible technocratic hell system that's already been created on this planet. It's a brave new world in North Korea. It's way beyond it. And so we need to stop talking about reality like, oh, I'm an American, I live here, I'm in a free country, everything's cool. What are you talking about, bro? Everything is not cool, man. There's 7.8 billion people on this planet and growing. There's 23 million people in North Korea. Maybe more, maybe less. We don't know the statistics because we have to rely on North Korea, a corrupt country. So we send in our little satellite spies and drones and things to try and gather more intel. But what did we find out from Vice like 10 years ago? Well, North Korea, turns out they actually have slave labor camps all the way up as far as Siberia and Russia. And they're tied into the Russian government and the Chinese government. Looks like actually, the more we look into this, North Korea is the stinky asshole of China. And that they're tied in with the Communist Party to produce cheap labor for all of us, right? Again, I hate to be saying these things. This is just what I've learned through like extensive research over many years, right? So when people are talking about trying to create this kind of a world they want to see, it's like, well, for who and for when and for why, you know? Who, what, when, where, why? And when you ask simple questions like that, second level questions, you realize most people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And we need more people in a position of power who actually know what they're talking about and who are actually trying to make the world a better place. So subscribe, ring the bell, and click all.
Vote Brent and Allie for president.
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm in awe. I'm in awe of how freaking smart you guys are. Like seriously, as far as like
knowledge bombs being dropped left and right here.
I mean,
yeah. Again, we hate to pick on Joe Bennett. Sorry, but
no,
like, imagine that North Korea. Forget the worshiping Kim Jong-un as a god. Pretend that they're just transhumanists. Would it be any different if they just kept the same economic system, but they were transhumanist? Would the conditions be any different? Would the slave labor camps be any different? Would the mentality of the people be any different? I mean, yeah. Step one is just believe that everybody else has a consciousness just like yours, and the way you advance society is dialectics. You synthesize your ideas with their ideas. You negotiate. You negotiate contracts. You make voluntary exchanges to advance society.
Voluntarism, Alex. We'll be talking about that all the time. Simple concepts. Alex, did anybody force you to come here on the Skype?
Nope.
Rowan, did anybody force you?
That's why it's a good stream, because I wanted to be here.
Rowan, did anybody say, hey, Rowan, you better get on Skype with Brent and Alex on a live stream.
Or else we'll shoot. Or else
I'll shoot you. Or maybe I'll put you in a cage, or I'll come and rob you. It's literally, if this sounds extreme, it's not extreme. This is what the government does. They either extort you through taxes. If you don't pay them, what's the next logical thing? They come and grab you. If you try to run, they'll try to grab you harder. If you try and resist, they might kill you or severely harm you, you know? And so this is what the police are and militaries are and government is. Again, if you're getting triggered right now, be like, oh my God, I didn't know Brent was like this. He seems like a right, crazy extremist. Like, no, I'm not. This is just reality. These are just objective facts. This is what happens if you don't pay your taxes. I'm just being real with you. If you haven't played this out logically in your head, then now stop, give you a second, think. This is what actually happens. So government are just a bunch of, kidnappers and murderers, essentially. That's what they are. You don't think of them like that. The language isn't like that. They put on costumes and pass artificial laws that aren't real natural laws. They're laws they made up, and do that to get away with this. But that's what they actually are. And if you go off in the military and you kill other people, you are a murderer. I mean, it doesn't matter what other people say or what governments call it, or if you go into jail because of it. You're a hero in many ways when you kill other people in war times. But you're still a murderer nonetheless. There is something called reality. There are facts. And if you kill another human being, then you're a murderer. So we don't want these things. What we want, what I'm trying to create, and what I believe our longevity team is trying to create, is a world where the things that are trying to come and kill you are stopped and halted as much as possible, as much as we can with science. And the thing that's coming to kill us now more than anything is aging. This is a celebration in a way. 110,000 people die every day from aging. Hasn't been like this most of the world. Most of the world's been other things. You want to know what's killed more people from unnatural death in the last 100 years? It's called democide. Most people aren't aware of this. It's actually government killing their own people. So if you want to be scared of something, Mao killed 100 million Chinese, right? Over and over and over again. Stalin, they just wipe out their own people for their own agenda. They don't care. They're just psychopaths running this stuff. So we don't want big government. We don't want more government. We've played this out enough times in human nature. This time it will be different. We'll have all this technology. They'll be better. No. This is human nature.
Just put a transhumanist in charge, bro. just
right. Yeah. So my general point is, like, we're trying to make your life better. By helping you live longer and healthier and get smarter. And one thing I loved about Jose Cordero is he laid down the 3 pillars of transhumanism as well too in the interview. Do you guys remember that? He talked about it towards the end. I did the timestamps and I was like, oh, I forgot Jose said that. He's like, we're radical life extension, and we're trying to make your happiness so much better. We're trying to make reality better. We're trying to get smarter together. So those are the things that I'm excited about, building a community like this with you guys.
Heck yeah. I agree 100%.
We got a question, more like a comment. Running Bear says, if Joe Biden wins, say goodbye to all of the good guns. We'll truly be helpless. Well, not necessarily. This has happened many times before. I mean, like, you look at like the Viet Cong or the Taliban against the Russians. It's guerrilla warfare, really. It'll be the cops against the people.
I don't think listen. COVID-19 has taught us all a lot that reality is difficult to predict. I don't think the elite can take the guns yet of the Americans. I don't think they're going to give up the Second Amendment this easily.
How many guns are there per person, like by ratio of people to guns in the United States?
I'm pretty sure there's more guns than there are people in America. There's 330, like 300. We'll find out with the new census, which was it was actually delayed, the 2020 census. That is, if you actually believe these government statistics. But 330
so the guns. There's 120 firearms per every 100 civilians. Second place is Yemen with only 50 per 100 civilians. So yeah, there's a literal war in Yemen, and we still have more guns. So it's not as easy as taking guns from Europeans, taking guns from Americans. It's not nowhere near.
And the topography is different of this country. The history of this country is different. A lot of people don't know about the history of this country. I mean, this country was started because a tyrant was taxing people out of control, right? And they literally, like,
over a 3% tax. Imagine if you got
that much, right?
3% tax nowadays, man.
And guys, they were committing treason, right? The founding fathers of the United States of America, these people we emulate, they're all these dead presidents on our dollar bills, right? They were committing treason, punishable by death against their kingdom and their king. Okay? So when I hear about people saying, oh my God, you should never overthrow this, and like, no. It is your responsibility as a moral person to stand up and disobey unmoral laws, right? Immoral laws, morals, like laws that you know are not right. You can feel it in your gut. And all this stuff about your gut, like, I think there's hidden knowledge that we've lost, right? I've studied the microbiome, the vagus nerve, it connects your gut to your brain. That intelligence is super strong. It's the microbes. You literally have more cells in your body that are non-human cells than human cells. You have probably about 38 trillion human cells in your body, and maybe somewhere around 100 trillion with the T microbiome. And we don't know these numbers for sure, but that's the best we can find. So you literally have like more cells and things going on that are not human, that are making decisions. Now, I'm not saying your neurons are not human cells. Those are, and those are decision-making faculties for your conscious mind. But guess what? Your conscious mind only controls about 5% of all of your behaviors and reasoning. It's your subconscious mind that controls about 95%, and it's way more powerful, and it's like a tape player. It's not like your conscious mind where your hopes, wishes, wants, desires are. These are things that a lot of people don't realize. So this is why you're like, I want to get better. I want to do this. I want to lose weight. I want to blah, 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 blah. But you never accomplish it because that's your conscious mind. But you didn't reprogram all your subconscious behaviors that are overriding that. So if you learn how to reprogram your subconscious mind, you can really become like a super learner and accomplish more things. And there's only two ways to reprogram the subconscious mind. That is through repetition and hypnosis. So if you use those two things, you can actually reprogram the most powerful part of your brain, your subconscious mind. Whereas, like, you have a lot of false beliefs.
Have you ever been hypnotized? Have you ever been hypnotized for this purpose?
I've never been hypnotized, but I hypnotize myself. And what I mean by that, it's a type of psychohypnotherapy. It's not like, yes, master, and I'm like, well, it's not like hypnotism like in cartoons. I reprogram my subconscious mind by telling new, more empowering, truthful stories. And they'll override certain old stories and beliefs that I had that I was taught when I was younger that were just like wrong, or anything, even if it was new, something I learned last week and I find out that wasn't. Like learning fast with COVID-19. This is what I was talking about. A lot of people are like, I don't believe Brent because he's saying bad things about COVID-19 and I've already decided I need COVID-19's this. No. You have to keep learning with new information. That's where everybody got lost here. They listened to the government in mid-March, and by like late May, a lot of them are still like, yes, whatever you say. Like, look at the data. We have the data. It's not a big deal, right? 330,000 people. It's sad that they died, but again, look at more data. These are people who were already basically old. Most of them, I've already given that data. They had comorbidities, most of them, right? This is and there's other bigger problems in life. I'm not saying we should do nothing. I'm saying that what we're doing is an overreaction compared to other risks. Hopefully that is very clear and that's not getting lost on people. That's why we already talked about automobiles. There's risk in life. We're not doing anything about them. And here's the other thing I didn't say. Automobiles can kill almost anybody. Babies, children. This COVID-19, hey, it's coming after old people who've like had their chance in life. We're trying to save them. Like, this is what we're doing. You know, me, you, all of us, longevity people here, we're trying to actually save those older people. But we also realize how many problems that they have because we've studied the science. They have a lot of problems, not just comorbidities like, you know, certain things like they might have type 2 diabetes or they might have heart disease or they might have cancer. They have many other things going on wrong in their body at that point, right? COVID-19 is coming in and just taking them out. It's sad. It's not good. It's a small percentage of the population, right? It's like 99. If they showed the survival rates rather than death rates of COVID-19 globally, it'd be like, this just in, mainstream news, headline, 99.99% of people are okay and they're fine and they actually built up immunities and antibodies to this. We're cool. Like, grandma died, but like she was already living a low quality of life. I mean, Max, our freaking team member here, his grandmother died of, she tested positive with COVID-19 and died in her nursing home, right? Max said she was already near to death, right? She'd lived her full life. It's sad, it's horrible. My wife's grandmother, 95. Not only was her quality of life low already, but at least we got to see her on holidays and stuff. Now, only time she's even leaving her place is to go to the doctors. That's it. We haven't seen her in 2 months since COVID started. Might not ever see her again. She might not be able to see her grandchildren ever. Sorry, her great-grandchildren. She's 95. I want her to see my son, but I don't have control over this. There's literally nothing I can do. She's literally like in a prison in the sense that she cannot leave. Their choice is out of her control. She can't live on her own. She can't leave. It's sad. It's really sad. And a lot of people don't know about this, or it's not being reported properly. But this is my like opinion. This is fact. This is She's 95. We just had dinner with my in-laws tonight, and yeah, she can't leave. So it's a weird world we're living in, and I feel like it's just strange to me that these kind of things I'm talking about, if they sound weird or like I haven't heard this stuff, it's like, well, then maybe you're getting your information from a wrong source, and maybe you should be getting information from more reliable sources that aren't just blatantly lying to you. Pause this video at any time that we've been live streaming and just do research and prove me wrong, right? Because nothing I've said is like a lie. You might disagree with some of my ideas and stuff, right? But none of the things that I've said are factually false, about so in any event, it's just when you add up the game theory of all this, you're like, seems like more and more power for the elite, people who run big government and corporations, and less power for 40% of Americans that are small business owners. And I'm just using America as an example because I'm an American and whatever the statistics, but this is what's generally happened throughout the world right now. The little guy's been crushed. So it looks like we've had a reset in the financial system. The rich have got richer. The big tech stocks are at new all-time highs. So sorry, none of you poor people are actually investing and caught that wave up. You lost your job, and now we're more dependent on government and sucking on the tea to get, please, government, just give me my UBI. This is exactly what they want, man. It's a freaking joke. So, whatever. Rant over.
Dude, I can't emphasize enough how important this message is about like the government stuff, because I've always for the longest time I've thought, okay, the government is going to be like a huge wall that's going to prevent us from living forever. Like the government I view as a very high threat level as far as existential dangers. And so that's why
Rowan, real quick, we want the government to invest in these technologies, but they're not. We want to persuade them to do it, right? So don't misinterpret what Rowan's saying there. Rowan's saying that right now, they're not helping, man. They're big enough, and they're not helping. So why do you think them getting bigger? Is they're all of a sudden going to be like, sure, let's invest in all these technologies? No, it doesn't work like that. They're already big enough. They're not doing it. Why are they not doing it? They're incompetent and corrupt. So, Rowan, I apologize. Please continue.
No, that's so true. Like, yeah, just like, I'm scared of the government, just like this big thing I'm scared of. I don't like the idea of them having so much power, and the FDA stopping people from getting gene therapies and just fetal stem cell therapy and all. It's just like horrible. Like they are killing people. So you're right. Like they're also, so they're murderers by like war and stuff, but also it's the murder by not letting people have the stuff that would save their life. Or like, what about all the kids who, if they were just taking some CBD oil, they wouldn't have seizures? And kids have been dying. Kids were dying of seizures, but up until that point, the government was blocking like CBD from being widely available. So how many kids had to die from a seizure because the government wasn't would let people have CBD and things like that? So.
See, when you have a monopoly on something, you completely control it, right? So I talked about earlier, the government controls money, which allows them to control, force. They have a monopoly on violence, and they have that because they have a monopoly on money. And then once you have those things, then you can create other monopolies, like a monopoly on drugs, right? This is what the drug war was all about. I hate to break it to you if like this is the first time you're hearing this, but money is the root of like everything, right? There's this whole book right here. These are financial backstories of history, and there's always a financial backstory. There's always a reason for why things are happening, and money is a big part of that. I'm not saying it's everything, but it's a big part of it. And so the drug war is a joke, right? I mean, the government made all these drugs illegal so that they can control them and make time. The CIA has been caught multiple times shipping drugs in, with planes and things like that. I actually just found out a few years ago, I think 6 years ago, that I think it was in 1991, Mel Gibson did a movie about this that I watched. I can't think of it now. It's Mel Gibson, and it was another famous actor. It might have been actually Robert Downey Jr. I think it was. And they did a movie. I can't remember what it was called. Somebody should look this up. I would watch it again. We could maybe even watch it as a group and like live stream it or something. But it's about the CIA shipping drugs in, So this was a mainstream movie.
Is it called Blow? No, not Blow.
No, no. Blow was incredible with
Yeah.
Johnny Depp, 2001. I've seen that multiple times. Yeah, but this is just about the CIA doing it. And in any event, I think Tom Cruise came out with a movie a couple years ago. Very
Air
similar.
America?
Air America, very good. That movie was great. But in general, I don't. These are cool things. It's social validation through Hollywood movies and famous celebrities and stuff for me to get the audience to think a little bit about this. It's unfortunate that this actually is the way that people change behaviors. Like looking at Mel Gibson once again, since I used him, coming on Joe Rogan about 2 years ago in early 2018 with Dr. Neil Reardon, and talking about Mel Gibson's dad, Hutton Gibson, how he is basically was saved through the mesenchymal stem cells down at Neil Reardon's clinic in Panama, why is that not happening in America? Why is Mel Gibson's dad having to go to Panama to get stem cells? He should be able to, dude, Mel Gibson's worth over $100 million. He has access to the best healthcare on the planet, bar none, period. Why are these stem cell clinics not just in Hollywood, not just all over America? Because we've regulated the hell out of this, and this is not science, right?
Lobby groups.
Pharmaceutical lobby groups. It's just absolutely disgusting. So if you keep pushing bigger and bigger government, guess what, guys? Like China's just going to eat our lunch. Singapore, Hong Kong, Macau, they're coming. And they actually are using science and free market economics. And you know what? Entrepreneurs can just be very nimble. They will go where they're respected. Money and intelligence goes where it's respected and protected. And people just leave, right? That's what that Ayn Rand book was all about. We were talking about, right?
Should I start learning Mandarin? Or what do they speak in Singapore? I know Singapore has 4 languages. There's like Malaysian, Mandarin, and like English. Oh, they speak English. I can just go English.
Lauren and I were in Singapore for 4 days.
Were you able to get around with just English?
Yeah, we got around. We figured stuff out. Maps.
All right, you guys, I have
Smart.
a very important question for both you guys. So, a lot of what you were saying, Brent, about consciousness earlier, it reminded me of the movie Lucy. And that idea that if you can use your full brain, or like there's a lot of big parts of our brain that we're just not really using. And we hear different people with different mental abilities like telekinesis and different like almost X-Men superpower stuff if people can use more of their brain. And the movie Lucy kind of gets into that whole like what would happen if humans used like 100% of their brain. So do you guys think it's possible?
Yes. So I think what Lucy was trying to say, we already do use 100. We already do use 100% of our brain actually. Like whenever you think of a memory, literally every part of your brain controls a different part of that memory. So think of your memory of like doing a tombstone talk. One part of your brain holds the occipital lobe, holds the visual of the tombstone. Your temporal lobe holds the sounds of nature around the tombstone. Your frontal lobe understands like the abstract concept of what it is. It's distributed. But here's what I think Lucy means by using 100% of your brain. As we grow up, like our connections get wired together, and it develops this thing called the myelin sheath, so that the connections can go faster on that one connection. But all the other connections are neglected. They decay. They depotentiate. And what I think it was trying to say was, the use of nootropics could help rewire the brain so that new pathways are connected through neuroplasticity, and will free up new like lines of flight between the neurons, so that you can conceptualize reality differently. I think that's what it was trying to say, is that we don't take advantage of the full extent to which we can rewire our brain to think differently about reality. To see reality differently.
Do you think you can get
the psychic shit? I don't know.
Like
the psychic shit where she's like throwing around fucking like CIA agents with her mind. I don't know about that, but like the perception of reality, I can agree.
If that was possible, if human beings could actually have like superpowers that, if it's already in us, there's some untapped potential, then that would change everything. Like we'd finally have a good alternative to those people who want to be robots. And they want to have superpowers through different enhancements with their robot bodies, but we don't have a good like alternative to that, and saying actually maybe we could have those superpowers built in us, and maybe it's even better than the robot people.
I think it's just
Hey,
really hard
hey
to
Rowan,
drugs.
just real quick, for my Skype view, your face is like almost halfway off the screen. So I just want to make sure that you're centered for Alex. And I'm not watching on YouTube,
Oh,
so I was just curious.
I'm centered on the YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't know why Skype did this. No worries. I just wanted to say something real quick. But yeah, Rowan, those are all good points. I think what's really important for people to keep in mind is that these are Hollywood movies, and that you also have the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper, which was also very good. The movie Transcendence with Johnny Depp. Cool theories, stuff we're all into, interesting concepts. We're way far off from anything just like that, guys. As just so everybody knows, this whole, you use this much percent of your brain, that much percent of your brain. I've seen some weird stuff. I've seen some weird stories that are scientifically validated. So there are tons of stories of people who just don't have a particular part of their brain, and you find out that they were born that way, and they live like completely normal lives. They got married, they had kids, they held down jobs. They weren't like superhumans, weren't super intelligent, but they got by like as people. And you find out like, holy shit, we did a brain scan and you don't have like this part of your brain. Like, how is this possible? So there's all sorts of those stories, not just one. I've heard like literally dozens of different stories like this. I watched a show about it once and it was mind boggling. And we know this now because of like brain scanning and all these, super tests that we have at all these, highly credentialed academic universities and PhDs and stuff, doing all these electrodes hooked up in brain scans and blah, 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 blah. So what is the explanation? The explanation appears to be, for now, because there is no other explanation based off the actual new scientific evidence and reality that we have, is that the brain is much more adaptable than what we thought it was. It's that, yes, when the brain develops like as it should, it develops and the prefrontal cortex does this and your hippocampus does that and your occipital lobe does this and blah, 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 blah. But maybe when, for whatever reason, through the environment or genetics or a combination of the two, epigenetics, whatever, it doesn't develop properly, it can still kind of like compensate in ways. And if you look at certain aspects of this with blind people, like, do you think that it was a coincidence, that you have two incredible blind, musicians who both happen to be black or African American, Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles, right? Both pianists. And, they were blind, but they were incredible musicians. And there's clear phenomenons here of people who lack one sense or one skill or something, they become much, much better at others. That book, Principles Behind Me, Ray Dalio talks about this. He seeks it out. He has tested. He's created at Bridgewater Capital, the largest hedge fund on the planet, that he created from scratch. And they had algorithms, different testing systems to be like, okay, you're really good at this. What are you compensating for? Like, that's the thing, this whole term of like, this person's a genius, that person's a genius, like whatever. People are really good at some certain stuff, and like you can find out people are bad at other stuff. My roommate, who I respected highly, he was 5 years older than me. He was 30 years old when he found out a cucumber was actually a pickle when it was pickled. He didn't know a pickle was a cucumber. This dude was making over $200,000 a year in Silicon Valley. I emulated him. I loved him. He's a smart dude. Then, a funny story about him as well, too. This was like 3 years ago. He's like 40 now. He was interviewing for another job to make like $500,000 a year plus stock options. This dude's awesome. I love him. He's a great guy. Intelligent, hardworking, productive member of society. The company was like, hey, man, you actually didn't graduate college. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? Turned out he did not actually graduate college. He thought that he did, but he even walked and he, picked up his diploma walking across the stage, but he didn't actually graduate. Like one of the third, like a credit didn't go through properly and whatever, and he never knew it until now. So he literally made it to like 37 years of age, like becoming a multimillionaire, working for all these tech companies, multiple. He's been at like a startup every 5 years, and he just found out that he didn't graduate college. So what did he do? He decided to graduate. But that was a rant of a bunch of different things connecting. But like, my point is that, reality ceases to amaze me. You never know what twists and turns are going to happen. We need to stay humble, and we need to focus on the facts. And we need to get other people to think like this too. And we need to get away from the nonsense. There's too much nonsense and people are not focusing on the right things. So
let me ask you guys this question. Do you guys feel like maybe you have any severe mental deficits that would then therefore cause a savant-like ability in other parts of your brains.
Of course. I have 2 stories for that. This was 2011. I saw both these stories. This is really crazy. You could Google it and find the verification of this. I'm almost positive. One of them, I actually saw a video of this. The other one was an article. There's a guy who was not good at math at all or anything. He got beat up outside of a bar, hit his head on the concrete. All of a sudden, he started drawing mathematical pi perfect and beautiful art, complex geometric patterns and stuff, right? They have computers. Look, he can draw pi perfect. He can draw a perfect circle. This guy had like no artistic training, no interest in this stuff. Boom, his brain got rewired. If that one doesn't get you, and you kind of need to see this actual documentary to see his art. It is breathtaking, right? You know, a picture says 1,000 words. I can't, unless we were to pull it up on a screen and show somebody, I can't communicate how incredible this is. And you see his story, and he's like, yeah, and all his friends, they have his parents, and they're like, yeah, he never was into any of this stuff. And all of a sudden, he hits his head, and now he's like a super savant. So then the other one, this one's even weirder. This dude was a straight guy, and he also had a traumatic head injury, and he became gay afterwards. Now, I'm not saying that being gay. I'm not saying being gay is a head injury. Don't come to me and take that energy at me. I'm just the messenger of this. I'm just saying in this one case, same thing. Like, I'm pretty sure they interviewed like his friends and maybe his parents, and just to validate things like, no, this guy was not gay. He had no interest in being gay. He liked women, but he had a traumatic brain injury, and then boom, gay. So those are just.
By the way, those of you at home who failed your math test, don't go bashing your head against the wall.
Right.
In hopes that you'll pass the math test tomorrow.
Good disclaimer.
It could also do bad things, not just good things.
Very good disclaimer. That's yeah.
Any other questions you guys wanted to go over from the comments?
I'll just end on that
before we wrapped it up.
The brain is crazy, and we need to learn a lot more about it. There's so much that we don't know about it. I continue to be amazed with neuroscience and the brain and how reality actually works on probably, I'd say, a weekly basis. I don't read something that blows my mind every day, but probably every week about the brain and how things really work. It's way different than most people think. We are super computers, like Alex was talking about earlier. Your memories are throughout your whole brain. They're not just your whole brain. You have memories in your heart, neurons in your heart. I think we might have neurons in other cells too, other organs of our body that we haven't fully understood, and it connects to the vagus nerve. Like, if you are trying to just save your ass and save your head at Alcor, you're not going to come out you, man. If you come out back alive, you'll have consciousness. You'll be like, oh, I can look around. You won't be you. You won't have all your memories. You won't have all your personality.
Yep. You'll be kind of a cripple of the mind, like you're just a little bit slower.
I feel like, because I lost my spleen, I think there was an element of my consciousness in that organ, and when they cut that out, like, there was a part of my consciousness was like taken. But I'm still, people can live with half a brain, so obviously my consciousness is still here, but something was lost. And like the Chinese, they would connect different organs, different emotions and things. Like, there could be like something absolutely missing from me now that I don't have a spleen. Like, it's weird.
Well, Rowan, I love you just the way that you are, my brother. And
thank you.
It's all good, but I know what you mean. Yeah, reality is a crazy place. And one thing I've learned from there's a Will Ferrell movie named this, but it has nothing to do with the movie. It's just that truth is stranger than fiction. You'll hear me say that quite a bit if you hang around me long enough. The longer you live, if you're actually searching for truth, you'll find that most of the time it's stranger than fiction. And just think about this whole COVID-19 stuff right now. If the truth is some of the things that I've been saying, if you look at the data is truth, right? The data isn't like perfect truth, but it's the closest thing that we have to truth. Like, I don't believe a lot of these government statistics and data and stuff, right? It's definitely not accurate. Things don't just boom go up 50% like overnight when if some of this data is skewed. But the general data, like, you can believe that if 330,000 people have died on COVID-19, whether you believe that it should have been more or less, like, a lot of people have died from this. But it's also not a lot relative to 7.8 billion people. Humanity will march on. We'll be fine. My general point is that you have to go with the things that you can actually understand. And if you just look at what we can actually understand about our reality, COVID-19, how our reality has been disrupted, it doesn't make sense based off the actual risk that happened. That's all that I'm saying. Why that is, that gets into conspiracy land. I have my beliefs on that. We can talk about that and why I believe that. But it is very clear that we all agree that this is pretty crazy based off the actual risk factor of what it's doing, how many people it can kill, and the actions that we're all being, that are occurring, right? It's very strange, is all I'll say.
It's like it was perfectly crafted to change our world so fast, you know? Hyperspeed.
Final thoughts before we close it?
I'm tired. I should go to bed. I had fun with you guys. This was awesome. I'm looking forward to Brian Kennedy tomorrow with you all. Final thoughts. It's like Alex, you're going to work. We're probably not going to talk. This isn't best for the audience, but Bill Falloon, I'm going to try and watch that in the morning, do timestamps, make sure there's no more editing that needs to be done before we premiere it. And we'll probably premiere it on Thursday at this point. You guys, does that sound good to you guys as a plan?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds fair.
So audience, if you're watching, go over to Longevity, subscribe, ring the bell. We're releasing our interview with Bill Falloon. It's really good. I love doing these I love watching our interviews again. I'm like, oh wow, like we did a good job. This is actually interesting. I would want to watch this if I wasn't me and didn't already do this, you know. So we're trying to edit it and make it even better for the audience so that it's good content people want to watch.
All right.
Absolutely.
S says good night, everyone. All right. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us.